Welcome back to tonight's regular meeting of council. Before we get underway, we'd like to acknowledge that this council meeting is being held on the homeland of the Tanaka people. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular council meeting Monday, July 28, 2025? Councilor Stetsky, Councilor Bassett. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of the public hearing of Monday, July 14th, 2025, and the minutes of regular council meeting of Monday, July 14th, 2025? Mover, Councilor Popoff, Councilor Ray. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We'll move right into delegations. We have one delegation tonight. We have Sergeant Graham Hurdle and Amanda Peters from the RCMP detachment to present the 2025 second quarter report to council. The floor is yours, guys.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sergeant Graham Hurdle. I'm the operations NCO with the Cranbrook Detachment. Staff Sergeant Graham is away on holidays, so I'll do the presentation tonight. First, we'll start with some detachment news. We had 2 detachment members who received the King Charles III Coronation Medal. Corporal Brittany George, the new Police Dog Service Corporal, as well as Constable Rob Dunlap, were selected to receive the award. The King Charles III Coronation Medal is awarded to individuals who have made significant contributions to Canada. Update on one of our more significant files. We had a drug trafficking investigation which led to several arrests. In May of 2025, the Cranbrook RCMP Enhanced Response Unit executed a search warrant at a residence in Cranbrook with assistance from the Southeast District Emergency Response Team. During the search, 7 people were arrested and a large quantity of substances believed to be illicit drugs were seized. In addition, currency, firearms, and other items consistent with drug trafficking were also seized. At the end of the search warrant, once the individuals were processed, they were released, without charges pending further investigation, and all of the drugs need to be submitted to the lab in Vancouver to be tested to confirm that they are in fact narcotics. We have a new community policing constable. In approximately a month ago, Constable Carly Monroe was selected as a new community policing constable. Constable Monroe brings years of experience working with youth and in the community, and as well, she'll also assist the Enhanced Response Unit with a larger scale investigations. An update on body-worn cameras. Since the implementation of the body-worn cameras in December, there continues to be primarily administrative challenges for the Cranbrook Detachment. Cranbrook Detachment is a Wave 0 detachment for the body-worn camera rollout in BC, so we're a bit of the guinea pig for all of the processes that are being created. One of the biggest challenges is internal data management, which is data sharing between community organizations when we're requesting information, but also us sending information to BC prosecution, et cetera, just due to the large volume of data that needs to be transferred. The policies and procedures continue to involve both nationally, divisionally, and municipally. So there's lots of moving parts that they're trying to work out, primarily related to diminishing or lowering the actual amount of data that needs to be transferred to what is relevant to police investigations. The administrative burden falls on the members, support staff, and Crown Counsel. Was not necessarily anticipated, but a lot of effort is going on to mitigate some of the issues that we're having. The bulk of the tasks fall on the general duty constables, since they're the ones interacting mostly with the public, and as well as the watch clerk team, because they are primarily responsible for the processing and administrative back end of managing the data. Some of this is unfortunately causing or pulling the watch clerks away from their substantive roles of assisting the watches, which increases some of the work that the general duty constables have to do. But we continue to work through it, and hopefully it gets smoother and smoother as we go. Just a little bit on community engagement. Since we launched the positive ticketing campaign in May, there have been 82 positive tickets, which are Slurpee coupons, have been issued to youths in the community for demonstrating safe behavior or good deeds. One of the volunteer initiatives from the last quarter was the Children's Festival, where several volunteers and members attended the Children's Festival and shared crime prevention tips with the public and conducted the fingerprinting for child find cards. An update on human resources at the detachment. Currently, we have 3 general duty constables on paternity leave. We have 4 constables on long-term medical leave, 0 currently on short-term medical leave, 3 members who are on restricted duties, which means they're non-operational, 1 member who's on administrative gradual return to work, and we have 1 vacancy currently that we're hoping to have filled, but we're just waiting for final confirmation on the member arrival. So our current rotable rate is at 70%, and we're, like I said, we're working through trying to get an additional member in the community. Community engagement and crime reduction initiatives. In the last quarter, there were 2 business engagements, 1 community event, 2 initiatives for volunteer training, and 2 crime prevention presentations. This is a slight decrease from Q1, only because we were in the process of filling the community engagement coordinator position, which has now been filled. So we anticipate once she fills the role, the engagement with the community will increase back to the levels of the previous quarter. Proactive policing. During the last quarter, there were 49 joint community patrols with City of Cranbrook bylaw, 20 curfew checks or verification checks on persons who are on conditions to be residing or in a specific location for set periods of time. And there were 160 proactive traffic enforcement patrols conducted in hotspots through reports to police and crime trends. A few examples of the hotspots would be along the strip, the berm behind McDonald's all the way to Top Crop, Industrial Road area, downtown core, Tamarack Mall, through all the auto dealerships in town, and as well as inside and outside of Western Financial Place. Some of the metrics for the last quarter, there were 2,700, just under 2,800 calls for services, reports to police, to just over 2,000 of those created calls for service. Between April and June, we had 139 prisoners, which is pretty consistent with the previous quarter. There were 59 reports submitted to Crown Council and 29 which were approved. The discrepancy there is that depending on the file report to Crown Council, there is a lot of review that happens, and depending also on the file, they will send it back to us for further work or investigative steps. So it doesn't always happen fast that the charges get approved, but generally that means that they're still sitting with Crown Council in the approval process. There were 236 mental health calls, which is a reasonable increase over the previous quarter and a fairly substantial increase over Q2 of 2024 when there was only 91. The wait time at the hospital increased fairly substantially as well to 45 hours on average. 10 traffic tickets, 6 warnings, 46 provincial roadside prohibitions, which is up significantly from Q2 last year and even a little bit from Q1 this year, and a pretty standard amount based on the last 4 overdose that required police attendance. Some of the metrics or crime statistic reporting in some areas have gone up between Q2 of last year. We had 93 reported assaults, which is up 15 files over last year, 10 reported sexual assaults, 41 break-in enters, which is a fairly large increase over last year. But we've seen an increase in break-in enters to commercial properties as well as residential. Something to note for residential break-in enters, there were 9 B&E files. Out of those, only 2 would be considered random, where the person who resides in the home was not known to the suspect. The other 6 were such as ex-partners trying to retrieve belongings, ex-roommates making entry to homes after they were evicted. So reported as break and enter, but also investigated slightly differently. Sorry. There was also an increase in theft from motor vehicles as well as mischief files to motor vehicles. We did see a decrease in reports of fraud and domestic assault. That is everything.
Thank you, Sergeant Hartle. Council, questions, comments? Councilor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I thank you for your presentation. A few questions, if I may. When you're talking about the drug trafficking investigation leading to arrests, were those all Cranbrook residents?
They were all living in Cranbrook at the time. Yes, that's correct.
Short-term, long-term, can't say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, there's another one here. When you're talking about the body-worn cameras and the challenges, and we all knew that that was going to be the case. Amanda, do you think this is, or Sergeant, do you think this is going to be a short-term challenge, or is this going to perpetuate down the road? Or how long is this going to take to get this thing fixed, given that we're the guinea pigs?
Councillor Popoff, through the mayor, that is a great question. I would say that's the $1,000,000 question. I know Staff Sergeant Barry Graham is working very hard with our local Crown office to try to create as many efficiencies as we can. Where some of the challenges lie is at higher level Crown and our CMP and agreements. Pardon me. The biggest challenge to us, as Sergeant Hartle had said, is now we have so much video evidence to prepare. And if we have 2 or 3 or 4 police officers attending a scene, we may have 2 or 3 or 4 sets of video to send. And then on top of that, we have to provide a transcript of that video. If someone has not been brought into our cells but is being charged, we have to provide those transcripts for all video in first instance as soon as we submit to Crown Counsel. That's a significant amount of work. Currently, eDivision is providing for free transcription and redaction service to eDivision. However, their team is quite small and the number of detachments coming online with body-worn cameras is increasing. The team is not. We are anticipating that that transcription work is probably going to fall in the detachment at some point in the near future. We just don't have any firm information or timelines.
So are we going to anticipate another FTE increase on your side, Amanda, going forward?
Quite possibly. We do need to wait to hear from eDivision in terms of what things are going to look like after this year.
Thank you. And Minister, a few more questions, please. When we were at Federation of Municipal, FCM, which is where all the elected officials get together, one of the big themes was, of course, the bail reform issue. So I'm wondering, do you keep track of how many repeat offenders here in Cranbrook go through the process and they're back out on the street and then they're back in and back out? So I'm not sure if I'm asking the question correctly, but do we have a number of how many repeat offenders are out on the streets right now, waiting their...
To get a specific number overall, we would have to look that up. We do have what's called the REVOI program, which is repeat violent offenders, and they are tracked a little more carefully. And there is a specialized Crown involved. So when they're arrested, everything gets forwarded through to a REVOI Crown, and they're the ones who deal with it. And part of it is it puts a reverse onus on the offender to actually prove that they should be released. So for those individuals who are in that program, it's tracked consistently. For overall repeat offender and who are in bail reform, exactly, I would have to do a little more research to get more specifics.
I appreciate that. So maybe a new metric in your reports in the future going forward, because that's the buzzword in across all municipalities and across the country, this whole bail reform issue. So what is that in Cranbrook? That might be a very important metric for us to learn better on. Whether it's a rumor or it's true, I don't know, but hearing on the street that the business community is no longer even reporting crimes to the police, whether for theft or vandalism. Is that truly happening out there? Do you have any sense of that? They'd sooner just pay for the vandalism repairs or eat the cost of the theft and just continue business. That's what I'm hearing.
Councillor Popoff, through the mayor, we haven't heard directly. We hope that's not the case, but very well could be. We are certainly continuing to increase, through our social media channels and through our, members connecting with the business community, reminding everyone, business and commercial, how important it really is to report to police, not only for that particular instance, but helping to track crime trends or to link things together and gather evidence. With our new community engagement coordinator coming on board in the first week of August, the business community certainly is one of our high priorities, and where we do plan to send our new community engagement coordinator out to connect with businesses. And we do have some great ideas of how we'd like to increase our services in connection with business community. So we look forward to sharing that with you next quarter.
Excellent. Thank you. Greatly appreciated.
We got Councillor Peabody, Councillor Ray, Councillor Steske.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple questions, if I may. The first one, that's kind of, with the statistic here about reports to Crown Council and the amount of charges approved. It seems like it's a paperwork issue. Is that normally what it is?
Partially, yeah. It's a paperwork issue, and then it's just the more volume we send to Crown, the longer it takes them to review it is part of the issue. It's the number of people who are available to review them and the complexity of it. And then the second part is very rarely, unless it's very simplistic, is a perfect report to Crown Council sent where they don't have any additional questions. And then it's just a timeline where we send a report. It takes them, a certain number of weeks to complete the initial review. They decide what additional information they'd like to request from us, send it back through. We go out and do the additional investigation, send it back to them. So there is a bit of back and forth for anything that's more complex, just to ensure that before charges are approved, they have all the information that they require.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, paperwork's never the fun part of the job. So what sort of quality check is there before paperwork is submitted to Crown? And how do we make sure that we're delivering sort of the best report possible?
I guess the answer is two-part on that one. The pre-body worn camera answer is the member would complete the report to Crown Council. It gets submitted to their supervisor. They do a full review. And then we also have the watch clerks who do an administrative review. They're not reviewing it for evidence or charge approval requirements, but just ensuring that all the documentation and naming conventions is done correctly. Post body worn camera, with requirement for all of the video and the first level transcription, is definitely slowing things down right now. But like Amanda said, we are working through it and trying to speed up our ability to submit the report to Crown.
Okay, thank you. And supplemental, if I may. So there's two statistics on here that kind of worry me. And one is seeing that the traffic tickets issued and traffic warnings issued is significantly down. But then when you look at the amount of motor vehicle accidents, they're significantly up. Do you think there's a correlation between how much patrolling and tickets we're issuing compared to motor vehicle accidents that are happening?
Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, that is a great question. Our motor vehicle statistics aren't necessarily the big traffic accidents. It could be a minor bump to the back of a vehicle that somebody's reported for traffic purposes that police wouldn't attend, but that person requires a file number for insurance purposes. So we quite a few of that, the stats that we have captured are for very, very minor, no police attendance required for those type of motor vehicle accidents. And so we have conducted in this past quarter 160 proactive patrols and proactive traffic enforcements. What it may be is that members are providing warnings instead of trying to do some education with that warning rather than just a traffic ticket. So the traffic enforcement is certainly still there. The ticket numbers are lower.
Councillor Ray?
Thank you, Mayor. just in terms of the human resources update, we've recently been reminded of, the difference between the municipal members of the detachment versus the provincial members. So when we're looking at these HR numbers, are these only for municipal members? Very good.
Correct.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify that. And do we, of course, it's been an ongoing concern in terms of staffing and just wanting to ensure that we're providing really the full service possible to our community and receiving the full service as per our contract with the RCMP. So when you look at the hard vacancy, do you have kind of a sense of a timeline on when you think that might be filled?
Our hope or anticipation is early to mid-fall. A member has been identified. However, they're coming out of a limited duration posting where they're required to stay until the end of August. And then there's the transition period where selling a home and actually coming here to purchase a home. So that'll be our goal always in the RCMP is that happens in 90 days. It took me 8 months to get here. So it definitely just depends on his or the person's housing situation, where they're coming from.
For sure. Thank you. And once we have that person in place, what will our percentage, if nothing else changes, what would our percentage be at that point?
Without having the Excel sheet in front of me, I
Yeah.
believe every member is about a 3% change.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. A couple of quick questions. On the body cameras, who makes the decision in terms of what footage will be kept and what needs to be transcribed?
That's part of the ongoing discussion between all three levels, national, provincial, and municipal. We are working with local Crown trying to reduce the amount that is required to be disclosed and transcribed to what is the most relevant. We're trying to get that pushed out more divisionally because the initial direction was everything, which is a very large amount of information that requires to be transcribed. But it's evolving weekly. And I think the goal, again, across all three lines, is to reduce the amount that requires transcription down to the relevant information. But it's a constant session of discussions.
So currently the individual officer doesn't have much discretion in terms of what happens with that footage? No.
Councillor Stetsky, through the mayor, we do have the RCMP has an agreement with BC Prosecution Service in terms of what is disclosed. So we are following that agreement at this point. I would say that there's not a lot of individual discretion. We have to follow that agreement. As to your question about the retention, who decides how long the video is kept, we do retain the video for a minimum of 2 years or for the life of that file. And part of the, going back to our reports to Crown Counsel, we do have quite a few that come back because we are missing that transcript simply because we didn't receive it in time, but that package needs to be submitted by a particular date to Crown Counsel. So that's part of that back and forth of, we didn't get all of that information transcribed and, we have to send it in a second package.
Thank you. And it's become pretty public, at least among Crown prosecutors, that there's a shortage of Crown prosecutors. I think they were saying 3 to 4 short in the Kootenays here. Do you think that, that ratio of asks of Crown Counsel and Crown Counsel accepting them as charges, do you think that's partly based on the person power they have to deal with the charges, or is that not a problem specific to Cranbrook in terms of proceeding?
I would say that's definitely not a problem specific to here. I think we're BC Prosecution Services constantly similar to the RCMP and any other emergency services trying to recruit and retain prosecutors. But I would say they would be prioritizing the higher risk or more complex files, but I don't think there is a change in the number of files that get approved. It's just the timeline in approving them.
Councillor Bissett.
Thank you. Thank you for your detailed report. Certainly, reports to council have really improved, like have provided us with a lot of useful information. Councillor Popoff was asking about repeat offenders. If that is not easy to do, I would suggest that we should discuss amongst us whether we need that information. If it's not hard for you to do, whatever, that's fine. But if it is, then we should, take a good look at the information provided and decide if we really need more. Something else I've been thinking about because of some inquiries by members of the public about issues of, people driving badly in town. Generally. And, I do think the city has a role in traffic calming. And one of the concerns I know from residents is when you get your street paved finally, and then now there's like really, we've been using potholes for traffic calming in Cranbrook, truly. And so, but maybe we need to have actually a program of looking at that. In order to control the speed that people are driving at through neighborhoods. And I would think that would be something we could work with the RCMP on coordinating. But anyways, so I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Very good. Anything further? Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So another quick question, hopefully. So when we have a vacancy, we're recruiting, we're out there posting for a new member or a vacancy. Who actually does the recruiting, the interviewing, and the hiring? Is that Ottawa or is that us here locally? Do we make the local decision to hire this person, or is that coming from places outside of Cranbrook?
No, recruiting is generally done divisionally. E-Division would have their
Kelowna
own.
then, or Kelowna?
It would be headquartered out of Surrey, out of E-Division headquarters. There'd be recruiting offices or people who can assist recruiting. Our nearest one is in Kelowna. But generally you can apply from anywhere, and then it's finding the people to actually do the application and recruiting steps required.
So are these potential members actually applying for Cranbrook, or they are hired for Cranbrook not knowing that they applied for Cranbrook? And then the part two is, do they even know where Cranbrook is? Oh, I'm talking about, turnover and people arriving going, this isn't the big city of Vancouver. What am I doing here? I mean, that might happen. And if that is a concern, is there a way to address that so there's more, what you're buying before you get here?
I think, and this is just from my experience, there are people joining the RCMP who literally want to go everywhere. There's people who want to go to the middle of nowhere in the north. There's people who want to go to the biggest cities. There's definitely people who want to come to the Kootenays. Near the end of your training process is when you find out where you're going to be posted. And for sure, there would be people putting, places in the Kootenays, Cranbrook, Fernie, Creston as their desirable locations. But part of it, what it comes down to is where the biggest need is. And that just really depends on the vacancies and the staffing numbers of, divisionally and nationally at the time.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Sergeant Hartle and Amanda. Very much appreciated. As you can see by the discussion here, obviously everybody's interested and concerned. And I just kind of reiterate what Councillor Blissett had mentioned there, that the reports, the quality reports, the information reports have come a long way. So we certainly do appreciate it. Going to move into bylaws. First bylaw for consideration tonight is from Finance Department regarding the Phillips Reservoir UV disinfection facility loan authorization bylaw number 4075/2022, which is before council tonight for adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to council. So as you've indicated, this is the bylaw for the Phillips Reservoir UV disinfection facility for the loan authorization, and it is coming to council for adoption. Pardon me. And for council to direct staff to forward it to the Inspector of Municipalities for the certificate of approval. The council gave 3 readings quite some time ago to this bylaw back in 2022, February actually, and it was in anticipation of the city applying for the ISIP Green Environmental Quality Grant.
And the grant application required that the city provide how it intended to fund the city's portion of the project. And staff recommended borrowing $3.5 million to cover the city's contribution of 26.67% of the estimated project costs and any unforeseen expenses. So on March 22nd, 2024, the city of Cranbrook announced it was successful in receiving a $9.5 million grant through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. And the funding agreement required that the project be started by 2025 and completed by March of 2028. The alternative approval process for the borrowing of the $3.5 million was undertaken, and the city received no responses to the alternative approval process. So council can now proceed with the adoption and forwarding the bylaw.
Thank you, Charlotte. Can I get a motion? The council adopt the Phillips Reservoir UV Disinfection Facility Loan Authorization Bylaw number 4075, 2022. And further, the council direct staff to forward Phillips Reservoir UV Disinfection Facility Loan Authorization Bylaw number 4075, 2022 to the Inspector of Municipalities for certificate of approval. Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Peabody. Discussion. I have one quick question of probably engineering. I did notice that, where was it here? Our funding that we got, the funding agreement requires that the project be started by 2025 and completed by March 31st, 2028. So is the design process part of the project that starts in 2025, or are we going to be actually going operational and getting into the ground in 2025?
Mayor Price, to answer your question, the design portion of the works is included in the grant funding as a part of the eligible funding criteria. So the work that we're doing right now, that we do have a consultant and a contractor selected, and we are meeting and working on the design process that does satisfy the grant requirements for starting the project.
Thanks, Mike. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Did we lose Wes earlier?
Yes, we had some issues at the farm to deal with.
Thank you. The next bylaw before council tonight is from the City of Cranbrook Development Procedures and Delegation Bylaw number 4211, 2025, which is back before council tonight for adoption. As well, staff are requesting that council repeal the Landscape Performance Security Policy number 35-01, as the provisions of policy have been incorporated into the development procedures and proposed subdivision servicing bylaw amendments. Can I get a motion that council adopt City of Cranbrook Development Procedures and Delegation Bylaw number 4211, 2025? Mover. Councillor Ray, Councillor Bassett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Can I get a motion that council repeal Landscape Performance Security Policy number 35-01? Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Popoff. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next up is the Subdivision Development Servicing Amendment Bylaw number 4212, 2025, which is back before council tonight for adoption. Can I get a motion that council adopt Subdivision and Development Servicing Amendment Bylaw number 4212, 2025? Mover, please. Councillor Popoff. Councillor Bassett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Next bylaw is the Municipal Ticketing Information System Amendment Bylaw number 4213, 2025, which is also back before council tonight for adoption. Can I get a motion that council adopt Municipal Ticketing Information System Amendment Bylaw number 4213, 2025? Mover, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Blissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Final bylaw tonight is the Bylaw Notice Enforcement Amendment Bylaw number 4214, 2025, which is back before council for adoption. Can I get a motion that council adopt bylaw notice enforcement amendment bylaw number 4214, 2025? Mover, please. Council Popoff. Council Bissett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move into new business. Our first item is from Corporate Services regarding the Health Canada Emergency Treatment Fund budget amendment. I'll ask staff to speak to this report, please.
Good evening, Mayor.
Marcel, thank you.
So just coming before you today with some very positive news for our community. Back in October, we came before council requesting to be able to make an application to Health Canada for the Emergency Treatment Fund. It was approved. The Mayor's Task Force got together, we put in an application, and we did find out recently that we were successful in that application for about 1.3, just over $1.3 million to come to the community. To definitely focus on the overdose crisis in the community across all sectors. And we really focused on this grant to ensure that we were hearing the voices from all of our community partners, where our gaps were, where we needed to really focus some attention. And then the whole program is built around connecting with all of those key stakeholders and really making this a collaborative approach to a community effort to address the crisis. And coming before tonight is to mainly talk about the financial piece of it and the way that the grant is structured, and that is, and so I'll kind of let Charlotte talk about that part of it for you.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Marcel. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So with this very great news, we're going to require a budget amendment because the grant was not anticipated in the 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan. So while the grant does cover more than the current year, 2025, today's request is of council is to amend the 2025 information for the portion of the grant that we anticipate will be needed in 2025, and with an equal and offsetting project cost on the expenditure side. Pardon me if I might. The grant or the report also outlines that the city will be required to front the money, and then we will be filing reports for reimbursement, which is very typical of any grant that we receive.
Thank you, Charlotte. Can I get a motion that council receive the information on the Health Canada Emergency Treatment Fund, and further that council approve an amendment to the 2025-2029 5-year financial plan, increase in 2025 federal grant revenue by $729,559 and adding a new 2025 Mayor's Task Force on the Homelessness Project valued at $729,559, and further that authorize the CAO and Mayor to execute the contribution agreement with the Health Canada on behalf of the city. Mover, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Peabody. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. This is really good news. Just for the benefit of people that haven't been involved in the process, can you talk a little bit about how the $1.3 million will be used to benefit the city?
Absolutely. First of all, we worked with Interior Health. So part of this, a large part of the money will go to purchasing a mobile clinic outreach van, which will be ran by Interior Health. They will staff and run the van. We're also looking at another community vehicle that will help us with outreach. One of the gaps that we've identified through the Mayor's Task Force and the other service providers is that we often struggle with transportation. If people are out doing outreach or out in the community and somebody's in crisis, that we have no way to get them by the time we wait for an ambulance or something. So that'll be a part of it. There are some staff positions that will not only help build capacity with our living experienced folks, those that are out there right now, but also people with lived experience. So to also build the capacity for them to respond to the overdose crisis in the community. We're going to work at building the resiliency and the capacity within our service providers. It's been a long stretch of time with the COVID and with the overdose crisis, and we're noticing that there's people burning out and wearing out. So we really want to work on strengthening that capacity, doing some community outreach, some community education, some community and engagement in some of these processes so that we're building the capacity there. We're looking at how we're engaging with people and what sort of processes, and really taking a regional approach to this so that not only are we building capacity here, but we're using some of that money to do outreach to our regional partners and hopefully helping people return and go back to their natural and home supports. I think that's kind of the basics of it. There are a few more things involved in that.
And just so it's clear, when you talk about staffing, you're not talking about adding city staff.
Absolutely not. These will be staff that will be housed, the contracts will be housed within some of our service providers. They're already programming, so they will take on additional staff.
Councilor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, first off, Marcel, congratulations on achieving this grant. It's amazing for our city. My quick question here is going past 2027 after the funding has run out. Should we be planning for some expenses that we need to fulfill with tax dollars, or once this money's done, like the project is finished?
No, we've built the project. So the project actually will run from August 1st of 2025 to March 31st of 2027. However, the program itself will end December 31st of 2026, and yet we've given ourselves 3 months to close down, to wrap up, to debrief. We will have a plan around any capital purchases that we make, where they will go, where they'll be housed, how that's distributed through the community. There will be no money being then needed to come from the city after that. It will be taken care of in that amount of time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything further, council? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Good stuff and good work, guys. Really appreciate it. Next up is a report from Recreation and Culture Department regarding the Aquatic Center hours of operation. We have Trevor on hand to speak to this.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So earlier this year, from March 31st to June 7th, we ran a pilot project at the Aquatic Center. And we returned back to regular operating hours after the shutdown, the annual shutdown, for July and August, in order to look at all the data and bring something to council. So one of the big things we learned is the Aquatic Center is not transactional. It is it's much more than a place where people just come to swim. In the report you have, there's a table showing you usage stats diminishing during the pilot project from previous months. Unfortunately, we don't have year-to-year usage stats. The only stats that we have year-to-year is revenue. So the historical data on revenue does show a decline during the pilot project, which would obviously directly be attributed to usage. And the decline in revenue based on our annual budgeting, we don't budget month by month, we budget by an annual number, shows that the pilot project revenue drop would be somewhere around $5,927. And the corresponding expenses saved during that project are around $14,689 just based on lifeguard wages. So yes, less operational hours is less expenses. Municipal pools aren't designed to make money. They're not designed to break even. They're designed to provide a service. If the pilot project continued as is for an entire year, there'd be an estimated $47,000 in savings. And that's based on the drop in usage, but based on the less expenses of having less staff working. If the usage stats went back to sort of pre-pilot project, The savings alone, just on lifeguard wages, would be $85,000 annually. Based on public feedback, the staff feedback and whatnot, the service levels that were affected and the final outcomes, staff are recommending that we return back to regular operational hours and discover alternatives for efficiencies and operational strategies, to make our pool as efficient as possible.
Thank you very much for that report, Trevor. So we have a request for decision from staff. Can I get a mover and a seconder for one of the following, please? That council direct staff to adopt the regular hours of operation pre-pilot project for the city, for the, Cranbrook Aquatic Center, or the council direct staff to adopt the new hours of operation for the Cranbrook Aquatic Center in alignment with the pilot project. Councillor Ray.
I would be happy to move option 1.
Option 1. Seconder. Councillor Stetsky. Discussion. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate all the work that went into this. It's, I think it's important to have pilot projects and to gather community feedback. And I know it was a difficult time for lots of folks during the pilot, but this is how we gather data. And so I really appreciate that everyone who responded and provided their feedback. And our staff team has clearly shown that they heard that feedback. And so we are now looking at new strategies. And I'm really pleased to see that, we're going to be doing work on other operational efficiencies. We're going to be, looking where we can have new approaches and try new things. So I know it's been a difficult period for pool users during the change in hours, but again, just really appreciate everyone's feedback, and the community can be assured that staff heard their feedback and we're moving forward accordingly.
Thank you. Councillor Bissett.
Well, thank you. I was wondering when you mentioned, Director Thors, about other operational efficiencies. And I'm just wondering why this didn't come up before we did the pilot project. Because there was a fair bit of pain with this. And yes, I'm all in favor of moving ahead and making things better. What concerns me is that we weren't doing that before. And so I do think that is something that should be discussed in the staff, and maybe CAO Furcho yourself can come back to us and tell us about what some of these efficiencies are, so that we can implement those. And I just don't want us to have to do these kind of things in order to have those efficiencies brought to light. And that concerns me. Maybe you could comment on that, CAO Furcho.
Certainly, Mayor Price, through the Councilor Bissett. I'll just say, anytime that we reduce services to any part of the public, there will be dissatisfaction voiced to council. And then with the rec services, we can focus in on very specific areas. So you're going to hear from very specific segments. But as we work through, our process of trying to maintain reduction in the necessary tax increases due to these cost increases, everywhere that we do touch municipal services for reduction will generate negative feedback. I'm just going to say that because I haven't not seen that yet. This one was just a very specific one. And when we work through this year's sort of budget challenges, Culture and Rec came forward with a number of areas that they were willing to pilot to try to find ways to save money. So they did bear a disproportionate amount of pain in the public pilot projects. But there are some areas where we simply couldn't offer that because we were already at a pain point with delivering the service, such as in emergency services. So we'll be doing that exercise again internally, and then coming back out in the fall with another budget survey, talking to the public about some of their comments and get feedback and try it again. So unfortunately, this is what we will hear.
Councillor Stetsky and then Councillor Peabody.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I represent council on the Cranbrook Library Board, and When we found that we were short, I think it was around $50,000 or so, we made the decision to go back to library staff and actually sit down with them and ask them for their input in terms of how can we do this with the least amount of pain? Are there other ways we can raise revenue? And they came up with some really good suggestions. And so I very much support this motion. And if you're going back to try and find further savings, I think going right back and having that sit down with staff is absolutely the best way to do it. It certainly worked with the library.
Thank you, Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think my question is similar to Councillor Stetsky's. But in this report, there's the survey that was given to the residents, and there's a lot of comments in there about ways that we can improve service at the pool. Just wondering if anyone within staff is being tasked to kind of go through those comments. If there's anything that we're gonna do, like, is there any value in that feedback from the citizens?
Mayor Price, City Councilor Peabody, that's a great question. We do have a new programming staff member coming on board. The posting is out and will be filled shortly, and that will be part of their duties is to increase our programming and aquatics as well. So taking these survey notes and disseminating and breaking them down to find out what's reasonable and figuring out what other facilities are doing. So,
Correct.
yeah.
No, it's great because, like, you know, running a business is great to cut costs, but you know, you're also looking to increase revenue. And I think we have a great facility there. I think there is room to, you know, increase usership too.
Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So first off, I want to congratulate you for coming forward with a pilot idea. You knew it wasn't going to be popular, but yet we did it anyway, and it was your idea for that. So thank you, Trevor, for that. I think some good things also came out of this. We've learned both internally and externally about how important the aquatic center is, and maybe some future opportunities for cost cuttings. In your second bullet under recommendations, you're talking about keep full day hours, but implement dynamic zone closures, et cetera, based on demand. Now, I've heard this before in the fast food industry, but are we now applying this to the aquatic, and what does that mean?
Mayor Price, through the Councillor Popoff. Yes, so just on your first note there, one thing that we are implementing is we are going to be doing more surveys without making changes to find out what changes should be made. That is a number one priority, but keeping full days hour, but implementing dynamic zone closure. So in these surveys, we'll find out, you know, if the lane pool being opened is beneficial, but closing the wave pool for certain times and certain hours. Therefore, the pool is still open, still operational, but we can have expense savings with having zones closed. So, but dynamically through the day. So, you know, however that's going to look is still to be determined, but closing the wave pool when we can and closing the lane pool when we can, depending on what the programming is happening at the time.
So thank you. So does that mean a lifeguard will show up for duty and find out the lane pool's closed and then they're not working that day, or would that be an example?
Mayor Price, City Councilor Popoff, no.
Thank you.
We do our scheduling 3 months in advance, and we do our programming 6 months in advance. So all of that stuff will be well thought out before it's actually implemented.
Thanks, Trevor. I'd just like to make a comment here. I'd like to thank Trevor, you and the aquatic staff. Certainly, that during last year's budget sessions, it was council that came to staff. You know, the flavor was to keep the increase down. We sort of hit as low as we could go, and council went to staff and asked staff, every department, to go in and look if there was any ways they could cut it, and is there a possibility of a trial that we could do? You undertook it. Thank you very much. I think, you know, at the end of the day, you proved we could save money, but sometimes we have to balance money versus public expectation, I guess. But, you know, and again, you know, council heard it loud and clear from the public, but you know what? I just want to acknowledge your staff. We heard it. We got it in writing, emails, Facebook. But your staff are on the front lines. they're the ones that get hit the hardest, you know, and that was our decision. We asked you guys to do that. So I just want to acknowledge that, you know, and appreciate that. That's just part of, you know, I think corporate business and you know, everybody working for a common goal. So thank you very much for that. Oh yeah, one quick comment too. And you know, I just want to say that we hit that point where maybe the public wasn't going to be satisfied with the budget increase. But again, anytime you think you're going to reduce a cost or maintain a cost, something is going to give. If we think we're going to put the same service out next year for what it costs this year, I don't care what service we have, it's just not going to happen. It just doesn't work. So something has to be impacted and sometimes it's service level. So that's something, I mean, this is a good trial for this, but that doesn't mean going forward that, you know, we get ideas and we can save it. You know what? If maybe we're not popular with the public, that's the decision this council has to make. So I just want to acknowledge that. CEO Fritchel.
So thank you, Mayor Price. Just back to Councillor Peabody's comment and Director Thor's response. I just wanted to clarify, that's an example of some of the previous work we did to find efficiencies. So Director Thor's talked about hiring a new programming person. So that is the result of some internal reviews where we eliminated 2 positions and found the greatest need to improve our effectiveness in that department was to add this 1 position. So we reduced 2, added 1, and changing the operation to be more effective in the community. So I just wanted to make, without the backstory, that adding 1 position didn't quite carry the right tone.
Thanks, Mark. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next up is a report from our Public Works Department regarding the Spirit of the Rockies request for field fee waiver follow-up report. I'll ask staff to review this report with us.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the Spirit of the Rockies event has been a community success in Cranbrook for the past 59 years. Over the years, the city has supported this event, providing municipal facilities as well as operational assistance. While the event remains a priority to staff, recent operational challenges and policy non-compliance raised some concerns regarding the sustainability of the city's level of support. June is also the Parks Department's busiest time of year, supporting user groups, keeping up with turf and garden maintenance projects, as well as accommodating staff holidays. Events this size take staff away from regular maintenance activities, which is already a full schedule. These operational limitations were compounded by issues that arose during the event, which resulted in notable damage to city property. Prior to the event, it was communicated to organizers that the field might be shut down due to excessive rainfall and that Public Works would update them in the morning. Multiple calls and messages to organizers in the morning to close the fields were left unanswered, and the events proceeded. Although closures are unpopular, they are necessary and are common practice in other cities. Following the event, the staff conducted an inspection on the fields and the facilities and observed severe damage and compaction to the soccer fields. Vehicles driven on fields were not approved and caused ruts. Banners and tarps left hanging, causing strain on fencing that had just recently been repaired. Garbage and debris. The total in-kind cost incurred to date to support the event is $20,700 so far, or equivalent to 12 weeks labor for 1 staff. Total portion due to damage amounts to $4,200 of this, and may increase if further work is required. I should say will increase as more additional work is required. To ensure continued success and balance operational capacity, staff recommend establishing a maximum in-kind contribution for events to help manage expectations, equitable for all community events. Consider implementing financial review of events. Fund a city member to oversee setup and takedown of the event. Would amount to approximately $1,200 for 3 days. and increase damage deposit requirements. And staff will undertake a comprehensive policy review to reflect these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Can I get a motion that council direct staff to not reimburse damage deposits, not waive fees, as well as invoice the Spirit of the Rockies, Rockies Cup Soccer, Rockies Royale Slow Pitch Tournament, and Spirit of the Rockies, the remaining amounts for repairs to the Belmont Park, Kinsman Quad Ball Fields, and Moyer Park Fields? Mover, please. Councilor Bissett, Councilor Papa. Discussion. Councilor Stetsky, Councilor Popov.
Thank you for the report. I'm struggling with this one. Partly because, well, I have a couple of questions first. So it means, part of this means that we are currently holding damage deposits in cash then from Spirit of the Rockies? Or is it kind of done as an IOU? Like if we, do they owe us more money, or is the money already there if we decide to keep it?
Thank you, Councillor Stetsky, through the mayor. No, there is not sufficient damage deposit, so additional amount.
But is there any? Do you have cash in hand that you're holding? And how much is that in total?
$1,000 in total.
$1,000. So when you look at it in terms of accountability, what could Spirit of the Rockies have done, or the groups you listed done differently to prevent the use or damage, or whatever you want to call it, to the facilities? So is there something they could have, should have done differently or better that they need to be held accountable to or for? Or is this just the standard cost of putting on those tournaments?
Well, throughout the event, we laid out marked areas where they were able to drive and not drive. We worked with we corresponded with the event planners, and at the end of the day, things were done differently.
Well, one follow-up, if I might. So in total, we could be keeping $1,000 that's already provided. If you looked at the total amount of damages that are listed there, how do you propose the balance of that would be recovered from Spirit of the Rockies or from whomever?
Well, if we're directed to proceed, we would consider invoicing the individuals based on where the damages were, or the user groups, and partially what could be funded from the deposit, the damage deposit. The other portion could be invoiced, or an alternative could be somewhere around the user fees. If we were looking at refund or of waiving the waiver fees, it could be that could be part of it. So however we want to structure it, we could come back to the table and come back with that with the final recommendation.
Councilor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Tony, on average, and Spirit of the Rockies and / Sam Steele has been going on for over 59 years. On average, how much does the city have to spend in repairs each year after the Sam Steele Festival, between field maintenance and whatever else we have to do?
Thank you, Councillor Peabody, through the mayor. So I would say the big change this year was due to the rain and the fields just simply needed to be closed. I'm assuming the fields are driven on in other years, but because of the soft ground and there's the additional damages. But as far as support, it would be basically what we have in the report, less the $4,200 damages. So the 20,700 less 4,200. And that's to date.
That's for this year. But
Yeah,
sorry.
and so other years would be, around the 16,000.
16,000. Okay.
And it probably has been reduced a little bit over the last few years because we did have an additional 7 summer students that would also help throughout the event.
Okay. Thank you. And so, like, looking at the organizers and of Sam Steele, and then also the soccer tournament and the baseball tournament, softball tournament going on, are we seeing less support for them for making these events successful? Like, are we seeing more garbage left behind? Like, I saw the photos of the tarp being screwed up or screwed on to the fencing there. Are we seeing less respect from the organizers for the city facilities than what we've seen in the past?
Well, I think this year, it was a matter of the poor weather.
Mhm.
They're throwing tarps up. They're just trying to make the best of probably not a great situation and trying to keep the events going at all costs. So I think that was the big difference this year.
Okay.
And it was a substantial rainfall. It was not your normal Sam Steele rainfall.
Yeah. So, like, I think where I stand, like, I'm in favor of keeping the $1,000 damage deposit because that's what we have to our capabilities. I don't know if I can charge them for the extra $16,500. That was the extra costing that we experienced. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yes, the 16,500 is that's what we would normally contribute in in-kind services.
Is it the 4,200 then? Is the additional?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well then, yeah, the 4,200. I feel like this year we just got to eat that 4,200 and learn from this experience, and then moving forward, I think you have at least option 2 of the motion is to implement bylaw and policy changes just to make sure that we don't incur such significant damage that city has to repair down the road. At least that's how I feel.
We'll round the table on this one. Go ahead.
So if we didn't reimburse the damage deposit and we didn't waive the fees, how much of our costs would be recovered on that without going to invoice them for additional, where if you could. Oh, there it is.
It would
there.
be the 4,200.
So that would be the total amount that we would have as compared to 20,000, is what you're saying? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. Can you re-ask the question?
So how much, we'll keep $4,200, and how much would we be invoicing them for? That's my question, I guess.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Councillor Lissette, through the mayor. So the field use fees are $1,444.
Okay, so we forget about that. They will not waive the fees, so they owe us for that.
And then the additional damage deposits were the Rockies were $500 for the Rockies slow pitch.
Right.
And $500 for the Rockies Cup, so $1,000 total.
Sure.
But I guess just one thing to note is that the ball fields didn't see a lot of damage.
Okay.
So like what we want to sort of look at is breaking it down to the actual
Sure.
where the damages were.
Okay.
And then the other point is that we were very fortunate that there was not substantially more damage because of the weather we've had since then. So the grass has been able to come back. So, you know, we could have been looking at reseeding it.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a few thoughts and we are getting into the weeds a little bit, I feel, in terms of the details, you know, how we want to break down looking at this funding and stuff, but maybe just to zoom out a little bit, bigger picture. In terms of Spirit of the Rockies, I had a couple thoughts about some data that would be helpful for me. And then if we take an even broader view, I think looking at some of our other events, right? There's lessons learned here about data we might just want to be collecting in our day-to-day business. So for myself, I think it would be helpful for council and the community to have a summary of the city nonprofit grants that we've provided to Spirit of the Rockies, just for information, just so we can see in black and white that support that's provided. In addition, I think it would be helpful to have a little summary of, you know, over the last few years. We don't have to go way back. What the council contingency fund has provided in terms of covering field fees. And so, you know, just a point of clarification, we don't waive field fees. They don't magically disappear. We find an alternative revenue source, and that alternative revenue source is generally the council contingency fund. In our policy for the council contingency fund, I believe our intent is that it's for unexpected expenses, not for recurring annual expenses. So that's just something to be aware of. I mean, we have a policy, we can always make an exception to the policy, but I just think it's good awareness. So those are just, and those data points are pretty easy to collect, I think. You know, what have we provided as a nonprofit grant to Spirit of the Rockies? What's the council contingency support look like? For this year, you've put in a figure around what the in-kind staff support looks like, which is helpful. So like, these are things I think we might want to track on an ongoing basis for any of our events. Like, okay, what was the in-kind staff support? It's probably just a metric we should have ready to go, and then it's readily accessible when we're having these kind of conversations. And to zoom out a little further, you know, I think, and this would be up to management to determine, you know, what their time looked like in terms of this, but if we could easily gather that data as well for the Children's Festival, Kisa Soccer, EdFest, just to have some comparables around events, because I think, you know, we kind of want to have a consistent approach to our events, right? Regardless of what the event is. So those are just a few kind of those bigger picture thoughts. You know, I think for any of us, if we were organizing a sporting event, we would want to be building field fees into the budget for our sporting event, right? And we would want our teams in their registration fee, that revenue would cover the field fees. So I'm wondering, like, are our field fees new? Has Spirit of the Rockies been paying field fees for many years? Like, is there something that occurred this year that made it unclear that the field fees needed to be paid?
Mayor Price, City Councilor Ray. So I have letters dating back to 2015 from council contingency supporting Spirit of the Rockies, formerly Sam Steele, and all the ball tournament. Soccer not necessarily has fallen on the same weekend, fallen on the same weekend, but ball has been waived through council contingency as far back as I could find on paper. So there are fees. They have not paid them yet. So.
Okay. I appreciate that information. And I think, yeah, you know, it's good to have that history, but it's sometimes it's also good to change our approaches. And sometimes, we really value our community partners, but we all know all of us are working together to tighten our fiscal belts. So sometimes we may need to change approaches, whether, if we're nonprofits in the community organizing events. I thought there were some good suggestions in the report about, new strategies moving forward. One strategy I would suggest, whether it's Spirit of the Rockies or another community event, and I know our city staff are very busy, and of course our nonprofit partners in the community whom we value are very busy as well. But I wonder if there might be value in having a pre-event in-person meeting, and that making that a required part of the process, so we can sit down together at a table and look at each other. Yeah. And confirm what the expectations are, and things like if it rains cats and dogs, we may need to shut the field. So I think the director would like to make a comment on in-person pre-event meetings.
I'll get Charlotte. Sure, Charlotte, you got a comment?
Thank you, Mayor Price. Sorry, Trevor. Just in terms of what Trevor added previously on the waived fees, we also took a look at the annual grants for the organization, and they receive about $10,000 a year through the annual grant program. Interestingly, that $10,000 is not applied to field fees, and they have been told to apply through the grant program. So by applying through the grant program, that should suggest full stop, and then you pay for the field fees out of that grant, but that's not what's been happening.
Thank you. Trevor, you got a comment? You good?
Yeah, Mayor Price through to Councilor Ray. So your answer, so we do meet in person, we do have these discussions. I think it just comes to, like Director Haytu said, it came down to we had terrible weather and communication was not the best. One big thing noticeable with Spirit of the Rockies Festival is there is one big society that operates it, but each individual event is operated completely separately. So when we talk about these Rocky Royale slow pitch tournament, that's operated by a completely different society than Spirit of the Rockies.
Oh, good point. Councilor Papa.
Yes, thank you. And a lot of my questions and concerns have already been raised. I think that it's not the dollar value, but for me, I think there still needs to be some accountability by the user groups for the damage that was caused, even especially since we closed or gave them directions and orders, and that might have been some neglectful. The show must go on, so we're going to continue. I know in my career, I've been on many fields, pitches, diamonds, where it's just terrible to hail, snow, rain, blizzards, and the game still goes on. So I understand from their perspective. I think they ought to be held accountable if there was some neglect on their parts. I don't know what that means. Also, yes, there's been some discussions in advance, but I think the lesson learned here is better assessment of what the issues might be. The weather forecast is telling us this, and they know well in advance that there may be some conditions, and if that's not already in place, pre-planning and all the consequences, power outages, wildfire smoke events, the floods that we just had, the rain events, how do we build that in so it can maybe still go on, but what are those duties and responsibilities on behalf of the city and also on behalf of the user groups to make the event still happen? I mean, I was out in that rain watching not watching, but seeing that the games are still happening at all the different fields. I'm going, these guys are crazy, but it has to go on. I understand that, but accountability, pre-planning, anticipating the worst, and how do you work through those events? Thank you.
Before we go around again, a couple of points, a couple of questions, I guess. What it boils down to, at the end of the day, is got a user group that or groups that cause damage to the city property. I guess the question now is the user groups pay for the damage, or does the taxpayer pay? Okay, bottom line. Then I'll look and say, we took a damage deposit in case they created damage. So they did create damage, so I would assume we're going to keep the damage deposits. I like the second part of we have a second part to a motion is to implement bylaw and policy change to allow for appropriate damage deposits. Do we have a bylaw that even allows us to do that, right? And then secondly, to invoice, do we have provision to invoice through city policy? Because then we're going helter-skelter. Do you know what I mean? If we don't have it, we don't have it, so we lose out on this one. If we've got it, and I don't know if there's a contract signed or any agreements when they use this that references damage deposits or invoicing for damage. Do we have such a thing? I'm just curious where we're at right now on policy. I don't want to put you on the spot. You know, you can get back to me on that one too. But you know, I am concerned about policy. If all of a sudden we're going to charge this group with this and this, we don't have any policy. Council hasn't given you policy or direction, you know, in the past to allow that to happen. Well, you know, we're running a little bit rogue there, right? And you know, I think we've got to be consistent. That's what the policy should be there for. We did take a damage deposit, and that was pretty clear. It was a damage deposit that they do damage, so I'm fine with that. But, you know, to go beyond that and invoice, where is our authority to do that? Do we have authority to do that, Mark?
So Mayor Price, just in response quickly without looking at the documents, I can just say, you know, what we found over the years is that a lot of our contract policies need updating. And this is no different. And then, so we are systematically working through it, but the city under council direction certainly has the authority to invoice for any cost that the city feels like. We invoice for various things too, back and forth between us and others. So that's possible. And then, you know, the other thing I can just turn your attention to is potentially the grant that council gives that group each year, the 10,000, we could look at that next year as well. Like there's a lot of ways that we could work through this, but the long story short is what council's raised over and over during this time is, you know, when you have valuable assets that are your fields, is having the policies have the strength to give staff the authority to close the fields, to protect the asset when it's required, and not have the groups have the ability to discount staff's directive and go ahead and trash the field. Because, you know, $4,200 damage to a field is, although it sounds like a lot, it's bad, but it certainly could be a lot worse. And the amount of time then that the field's closed for future users through the rest of the year, so the one group gets to have their event, but now the next 10 groups can't have their events because the group ahead trashed the field for them. And if that goes on year after year, now we get the field's degraded and weeds take over. And now and I've actually been in a community where the professional association refused to play on the fields because they became so bad. Then we lost the revenue of all of those competitions coming to town because we've allowed the fields to get degraded. So it's back to council support for us to create the proper strength in our bylaws and policies to ensure we can protect our assets so that it's there for everybody.
Thanks, Mark. So Mark, did we close the fields in this situation? No, we did? We did close the
Yeah,
field.
so staff advised the groups the fields were closed in multiple streams of text and emails and phone calls. So
Okay, kind of changes the optics a little bit. Might as well beat this one up. I think everybody had another question. Councilor says he's up. Oh, go ahead.
I think I moved this motion, Mayor.
Yeah.
Am I the mover? I thought maybe you were the seconder.
I'll tell you. Councilor Ray.
Moved.
No, hang on. No. Councilor Bassett. It talks about.
Okay, may I make a
Yeah.
friendly request for a friendly amendment? There's like several things in this motion on the table, which makes it difficult to vote for and against when you might be in favor of one, but against two or whatever. So I wonder if the mover and the seconder would consider a friendly amendment for a motion simply specific to not reimburse damage deposits. If we could start there, if they would accept that as a friendly amendment and separate out the remaining issues, perhaps to be deferred to a future meeting would be my suggestion.
Do you want to amend the
And
motion?
if not, that's okay, but that would be my suggestion. I think if we could start with to not reimburse damage deposits.
Councilor Bassett, you,
Well, I agree that's the minimum. I mean, because there was damage. It is on us that our damage deposits aren't high enough. But then there's another level of waiving fees when we're already losing on this. And then, you know, separate to that is trying to invoice. I do think we have an opportunity in future. I mean, if we invoice them and they don't pay, then we look at our grants next year. That's our option, you know, because we do have a responsibility to maintain our facilities. But I understand Director Hito has something to say as I'm about to dig a hole here.
Thank you, Councillor Blissett through the mayor. I just want to make a point when we go to our motion. So the Rocky Slow Pitch tournament, the $500 damage deposit, there was no damage to the slow pitch fields. So it would be so there would only be the 500 for the Rockies Cup. Oh, there was. Okay. Yeah. Oh. Okay, so when it was actually, sorry to confuse this, but when the actual damage at the slow pitch was due to the RVs parking on the field, so there was $400 damage to that. So 400 of the 500 of the slow pitch tournament was due to the RVs parked on the grass, and the quads tarps, and then the Rockies Cup soccer was substantially more than the $500 damage deposit.
Councilor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wondering, is refunding a damage deposit, is that a council decision? Or can we just take that out of the motion altogether and just let staff decide if the damage deposit gets refunded or not? Is that fair? Okay, so maybe to amend your friendly motion, can we just vote on whether or not we invoice Spirit of the Rockies for the extra $4,200 and then leave the refunding of the damage deposit up to staff?
Okay, Councillor Stefke had a comment. And then Beth, yeah, here we go. We'll go one more round. We're gonna have to make a decision here, even if we have to defer this.
Quick question.
CO for Joe.
Mayor Price, I'm just wondering, given the discussion, if we just, administration can listen to the rest of the comments and then we can take it
I
back.
think so.
Let us have a chance to rework
Refer to
this
the next meeting.
and provide more
Yeah.
data as requested.
Thank you. Good stuff. Deferred. Somebody want to make a motion to defer? Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray. Discussion to defer. Councillor Stefke.
So we're deferring, and what are we asking staff to do then? Well, this gets deferred?
Well, we've thrown about 80 questions at them, and some of them, they're not capable of answering at this point in time, so they can bring back more relevant information to the next meeting to be able to answer our questions, so we can make an informed decision, I would think.
What are the questions? Now we've heard that it's $400 from the Ball Association, 500 from the soccer, but yet we're talking about Spirit of the Rockies having the $1,000 deposit. Anyway, if you can clarify all of that then.
Maybe I'll just go back to, good comments. And I think, it's just unusual for us to not refund a damage deposit. So that's kind of why we just wanted to paint the bigger picture for council. Councillor Peabody was absolutely correct. That's a staff decision on refunding a damage deposit or not. So when we return, we'll be removing that section. But there are just a bunch more information pieces that I think would be helpful for this. And we'll come back.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in terms of procedure, I wonder if we might be better to defeat this motion tonight. And the reason why I say that is because there's like 3 items in that motion. And when we have a motion, we should have separate motions for each item, in my opinion, because then you can vote on each separate component. So I think I would prefer that'd be my suggestion, to defeat this 3-part complicated motion tonight. And when this comes back, that we have a more itemized approach would be my suggestion. Because if we defer this same motion is going to
We got a
come
motion
back.
on the floor to defer right now, so we will
Okay.
vote that down. If you're in favor of what Councilor Ray is suggesting, we'll vote this down to defer and then we'll defeat the next motion. The other motion that was on table. So this is for the motion to defer. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The original motion, all in favor? Opposed? Done, thank you. Good discussion.
Well, they need to come back.
Yeah. Next item is development variant permit for 1024 19th Street South. Connor, you're up for this one. Thanks, Tony, on that. Much appreciated. We had you on the hot seat, you and Kirby there, so thanks.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, this is a variance that's being applied for the property at 1024 19th Street South. Simply put, the variance would be applied to the rear yard setback for an accessory building, as well as a side yard setback for both an accessory and their existing principal building. The purpose is to build a garage further towards their rear corner of their lot. So the variance to the rear yard setback for the accessory building would be varying from 9 meter setback of the rear yard to 3.5 meters setback. And for the side yard setback for the accessory building and principal building would be going from 7.5 meters to 3.5 meters. And again, this is just for the applicant to be able to locate a garage closer to the corner of their yard so that they aren't building it right in the center of their existing yard. Notice for this variance was sent out by mail to neighbors. Just prior to the meeting, I received a phone call. So I got a comment from them that it was verbally given to me over the phone, but they had tried to submit an email for a formal comment. They were unable to successfully get the email through to me. So I wrote down the comment to bring here. One of the neighbors to the west, so at 1000 19th Street South, they had stated that this would impede their ability to develop a well and septic and would decrease the value of the property. So they do not support the variance. As for staff recommendations, we didn't see any issues with locating the garage closer to the rear corner of the lot. The existing character of the entire block currently was something that was brought in from the regional district earlier. So there are existing nonconformities on other sites that their setbacks are 2.5 meters, 3.5 meters, and I believe there's one property that does abide by the current setbacks. It's 9 meters, but primarily the setbacks are smaller, so that's it for me.
Okay. I get a motion that council approve development variance permit application number 3090.20.2508 with conditions to vary the rear and side yard setbacks identified in section 7.03.5 of the City of Cranbrook zoning amendment bylaw number 3977, 2019 for lot 7, district lot 3912, Kootenai District Plan 4896, located at 1024 19th Street South, for the purpose of building a garage accessory to the principal residence as follows: rear yard from 9 meters to 3.5 meters, and side yard from 7.5 meters to 3.5 meters, with the condition that the garage and property be connected to city water and sewer if plumbing fixtures are included in the garage. Mover, please. Councilor Peabody, Councilor Ray. Discussion. Councilor Statsky.
So just trying to understand this, because when you look at the map, it looks like it's a pretty large yard that they have. So they could fit this structure on their existing property, but they don't want to. They want to change the setbacks. But it just looks like there's lots of room without proceeding with this.
Councillor Snetsky through the mayor. Yes, there is room in the center of the yard. The concern that was raised to us is primarily for access to the yard. They have young kids, so they don't want their kids to be, when they're watching them from inside the house, they'd rather them be in the yard that's accessible from the windows rather than behind the garage. That's the primary reason for this variance, I would say.
Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Just curious, have you seen these smaller setbacks in other developments? Like, is this something that the city has improved in the past?
Sure. If I may, through the mayor to the council, when you compare these respective setbacks that are being requested, they're actually still would be greater than anything you'd see in R1. Our current R1 requires a probably 0.9 on a rear if there's a no lane, or 2 point, whatever, the vice versa, 1.5, and our side yards are typically 1.5. I think one of the issues, just to highlight as a point of clarification, this property zoned RT residential transition, which is typically applies to our larger acreages. And those are like the 5-acre parcels. So when the lots were brought into the city, I suspect because they're on wells and septic and there were acreages, they were given the RT designation. But those setbacks would make sense for a 5-acre parcel. But the property here is quite a bit smaller than that. But within the context of comparing it to our other zones, I think it would be well within or if not exceed current regular residential setbacks. It's just that when you take it in the context of an RT parcel, a 9-meter setback on 5 acres is not that big a deal. On a parcel of this particular size, that's pretty significant, right? So that's just sort of a bit of the history, because we have these non-conformances because of the zoning that was applied for rural parcels or the acreages, but it's a large city lot almost, really. Yeah.
Connor, could I get you to read that telephone concern that you got again? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Mayor Price, the phone call, they had mentioned that they had sent in an email, but we didn't receive it. The email had stated that this would impede their ability to develop a well and septic on the abutting parcel and would decrease the value of that property. Currently, it is an empty parcel, but the owner is the one who had submitted the comment. So yes, just to reiterate, stated that this would impede their ability to develop a well and septic on the site and would decrease the value of the property, and they do not support the variance.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I don't want to put our engineering on the spot, but is there merit to what that person is saying? Would it compromise the ability to build on there with water and
from our perspective, there shouldn't be any reason, even if they were able to construct a well and septic on their property, that it doesn't stand any reason why the neighboring property would need to be utilized or would encumber such a thing. When it comes to developing and building on that site, there's other provisions in our bylaws that require, water and sewer connection. So we typically wouldn't allow a new well and septic field to be constructed, but that's a secondary thought. But I don't see any reasons why that would be something where this development or this use on this site would be an issue.
Thank you. That was my next question, because if he was going to build, on there with well and septic, we need, what is it, 2 hectares or something like that, right? So, yeah, thank you very much. Anything further? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thanks, Connor. We have another development variance permit up next. This one is for the property located at 2997 Eagle Ridge Point North. I'll ask staff to review this report with council, please.
Mayor Price and council, the variance application is applying, as you stated, to 2997 Eagle Ridge Point North. I should clarify, this is zoned R1. The setbacks for this one are, currently the rear yard setback is 6 meters existing on the site. They're applying to vary the rear yard from 6 meters to 2.45 meters. The purpose is to construct an additional 2 feet onto the rear of their deck. And that's the only reason. Notice was sent out July 17th. There was no comments or concerns raised by the public.
Thanks, Connor. Can I get a motion that council approve a development variance permit application number 3090.20.2509 to vary the rear yard setback required in section 7.04.5 of the City of Cranbrook zoning amendment bylaw number 3977/2019 from 6 meters to 2.5 meters for the purpose of building an addition to the existing deck on property located illegally described as Lot 1, District Lot 24, Kootenai District Plan, EPP 72581, located at 2997 Eagle Ridge Point North. Mover, please. Councilor Stetsky, Councilor Peabody. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next up is a report regarding the new application for exclusion from the Agricultural Land Reserve, private landowner policy number 36-02. I'll ask staff to speak to this report, please. Rob?
Sure. Just let Councillor Ray grab a seat. Get started. Awesome. Thank you, Mayor Council. So this proposed policy is following on the heels of the adoption of the delegation bylaw, in which we reference making applications for agricultural land commission exclusion, and therefore to apply the policy that would be used to guide those decisions. Just a quick little history lesson. In about 2020, the Agricultural Land Commission changed the legislation, but changed the rules for making application to exclude land from the ALR from individual landowners being able to make those requests to specified bodies having to make the request on their behalf. So local governments are now required to be the applicant on behalf of a landowner. So we hadn't really adjusted our policies or bylaws because we don't deal with it very often. It wasn't even on our radar, to be honest. It was just something that we deal with so infrequently here that it hadn't really occurred to me until we did the exclusion for the Alliance Church. But following the adoption of our official community plan, we have policy that does support agricultural land reserve exclusion of lands in the northern area. But if you recall, there was a letter from the Agricultural Land Commission staff at that time that was not overly supportive of our policy. And so we adjusted our policy to acknowledge that, to saying that this policy is not supported by the Agricultural Land Commission, and further that we would look at engaging with them at some point. And so from a land use perspective with respect to the OCP and agricultural land reserve processes, the staff is proposing this policy that would help guide our decision if and when a landowner was to make a request to the city for an exclusion, particularly the northern lands. If you recall, we have the lands designated urban holdings because we acknowledge that there needed to be more planning occurred in that northern area. So, and given that the Agricultural Land Commission, their comments weren't overly enthusiastic about our policies, we feel it would be a proper approach for the city to consider, if we're going to be looking at making application on behalf of landowners to exclude land from the ALR, it should follow on the heels of the further planning in the northern area and engagement with the Agricultural Land Commission to hopefully get their endorsement. And so, because we see that is the route of the route that, of course, the Agricultural Land Commission had suggested we follow. But also, I just think that in order for us to have a better chance of success, we're probably better likely to have a block exclusion with multiple landowners who are interested at the same time, having done the appropriate studies that might be required, bringing the Agricultural Land Commission into the discussion, rather than accepting applications, charging people fees, and then council has to make a decision, yes, we'll send it on the application, and we start sending them individually and run the risk of possibly either some being approved and some not, or I suspect just from previous experience, we would likely get, we told you in the OCP we didn't support this until you came to us, so probably not. So this policy is intended to set the guideline by which we would be able to deal with these requests. We don't foresee too many coming in immediately, but given that the tax rules will change for the northern area in 2028 as part of the northern boundary expansion, I suspect this is one of the items that we're going to need to be dealing with, as well as potential land use and zoning changes, because the tax change will probably be significant potentially, and then that might spur requests for wanting to do development. So we have brought to council a couple of times now in various discussions about the need for that sort of northern area planning exercise. It's currently not in the books, but we envision that it would probably take place sometime before the 2028 deadline. So in that intervening time, we would use this policy just to advise landowners that the city will not be making application on your behalf to take land out of there. So we don't even have to worry about taking money, because automatically they have to pay $750, the Agricultural Land Commission, $750 to us. And then if we follow through, there's an additional $1,500 charge now that's for the public hearing, the notification, all that stuff. And again, I think just as kind of described in the staff report and through experience, I think we would have a better chance of success if we pursued it on a larger block scale and actually brought the Agricultural Land Commission on board. So I don't really want to jeopardize that potential, especially if the city is going to look at that is going to be a development lands for the city. We don't want to jeopardize the potential, because if it doesn't come out of the ALR, it'll stay like that forever, and then you're really limited as to what could potentially happen. Having said that, this policy applies to the northern area, and the other provisions of the consideration in the policy would be whether there was a different form of application that might be more acceptable. So it doesn't preclude someone from saying, I want to do X on my property, and perhaps a non-farm use is the better approach, a type of application, rather than just exclude it from the ALR, because lots of people think that's the automatic, I just need to get it out. There might be other avenues we could pursue, so that we're leaving that window open. And there's also a couple properties that are not in the northern area, one of them being the Cranbrook Golf Course, and an adjacent one that are already residential, have a house on them, they just happen to be in the ALR. But also not supporting exclusion of land that we've designated as agriculture, particularly in this time, because that is almost certainly not going to be successful, I suspect, at the Agricultural Land Commission. But it does outline that we would prefer to work on it in a larger multi-block or multi-property or block exclusion once the city has conducted the further planning, engagement with the neighborhood, engagement with the Agricultural Land Commission, established what would be appropriate land uses, and then pursue that provision. Just as one additional item that didn't come into this report, but there has been some information that's been passed on. I guess there's an expression of interest potentially for the city to join the RDK in an ALR review process. So if that is an option, or if that comes to fruition, that just means that work, maybe we'll work on that separate from the northern area planning, which the intent of that exercise, if I'm not mistaken, would be a similar idea. Does the land belong in ALR or not? So if that does occur, then that's great too, because this can still help inform that. But if it doesn't, then we would defer back to ensuring that we do the land use planning and so on and so forth. So it's sort of a long-winded explanation, but it is a bit confusing. So I just want to make sure that we're all clear. And I think that's about it.
Thanks, Rob. Good report and a great explanation on that. Appreciate it. Can I get a motion that council approve the new application for exclusion from the Agricultural Land Reserve ALR private landowner policy number 36-02? Mover, please. Councillor Peabody, Councillor Stetsky. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Good. Yeah, great work, Rob. I think it's sure time we did make a move on that. Next item is a report regarding Habitat for Humanity land donation housing project. I'll ask staff to review the report if they could.
Yet. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll get started on this. So this report is a follow-up to our previous reports that we've received and requests from Habitat for Humanity. If you recall, we granted Habitat for Humanity back in May approval to undertake some due diligence on the property for the potential of a habitat project on this site. They've done their due diligence. We received a letter of request in July that they have done their due diligence and they've done their studies and have determined that the site is feasible and suitable for a development project, and based on their analysis that it would be suitable for a side-by-side duplex based on a variety of factors, and they're all indicated in the report. But essentially, they say it fits both contextually, it's contextually appropriate to the surrounding neighborhood and aligns with our organizational mission to serve the working families with dependent children. So they are requesting that in partnership with the city consider a land donation to Habitat, either in form of a fee simple transfer or long-term lease for the purposes of constructing a Habitat duplex on the property. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Rob. Can I get a motion that council accept the proposal by Habitat for Humanity to develop a duplex on the property located at 2600 4th Street South, legally described as Lot 41, District Lot 35, Kootenai District Plan 9263. Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Blissett. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, really happy to see this proceeding.
Further? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Great project. Can I get a motion that council approve donation of a city-owned lot located at 2600 4th Street South and legally described as Lot 41, District Lot 35, Kootenai District Plan 9263, 013-151-193 to Habitat for Humanity Canada for the use as affordable residential housing for the sum of $1, subject to the inclusion of provision for the property to be returned to the city with no compensation to Habitat for Humanity Canada in the event the property is not used for the purpose intended within a period of 2 years, and that the mayor and chief administrative officer be authorized to sign the necessary documents. Mover, please. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Good stuff. Thank you. Next up is a report regarding water and sanitary sewer rate study. We've got Curtis on this one. Welcome, Curtis.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Coming forward tonight to ask for some funds to look at undertaking a water and sewer rates study to provide guidance to the city to update our rates and structures. The current frontage tax bylaw hasn't, well, we've been updating the rates. The actual methodology used hasn't been looked at since at least the early 1970s. And then the use bylaws, the water works bylaw, mid 1980s. And some of the things that have come out of that is that, for example, when we charge our cubic water meter rate, we're only charging 0.286 per cubic meter right now, so 28 cents per 1,000 liters. However, it's costing the city closer to 60 cents per liter operationally to provide that. So the fixed rate users are actually compensating for the metered rates users, for an example. But with the city wanting, or the intent is to move in towards universal metering in the city, to my understanding, which is more to the next report, is that we need to look at updating how we charge water and sewer rates, and that methodology, especially critical now that we're looking at metering. And so we'll be looking at those methodologies, the rates, including proper asset management. So we may need to implement them over time, but this is going to advise us updating our frontage tax to maybe another methodology, or would we stay the same? I don't know, but it's to update us to the 21st century from the mid 1970s, essentially.
Thanks, Curtis. Very timely. Can I get a motion that council authorize staff to undertake a water and sanitary sewer rate study? Funding to be $55,750 from the Water Capital Reserve and $35,650 from the Sanitary Sewer Capital Reserve. Mover, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Mayor. So in essence, this is to hire a consultant that might be the one that put together the cost to do the work. We can't do it internally. Is that what the decision is?
Councillor Stetsky, through the mayor, that's the intent. Just given workloads of staff right now, and then also just the research behind it. This company's been involved in quite a number of rate studies and in the province in the last decade, a lot of examples, but a lot of it is due to the workload of current staff to do it internally.
If I might just quickly, so the ultimate, though, the product will let us finally proceed with metering in Cranbrook once we're done this study?
Councillor Stetsky, through the mayor. That's correct. Depending on council's input on the next one report, we would bring in the cost of universal metering into these rate studies and how we would implement it as part of it.
Councillor Peabody.
How time sensitive is this study? Like you talk, and yeah, answer that question. I'll have a follow-up question, please.
At this point, we've been using these the methodology for the rates for quite some time, but it'll impact how quickly we can actually universally meter the city. But if we delay a year, it's not going to impact a lot. But if it's a priority of council, then we can try and do it as quickly as we can and have these rates for the fall. But
yeah,
it's critical for universal metering because right now we may be installing residential meters, but we're not billing with them.
Okay, and I think on top of what Councillor Stetsky was saying, no, we're seeing a lot of bylaws come forward where staff have prepared them to update the rates similar to what other municipalities are doing, and it hasn't cost us $90,000 to do those studies. It seems like staff have been capable of doing that. So I'm just curious why updating our water and sanitary sewer rates is so much more complicated than some of the other bylaws that have come in forward to council.
That is a great question. So some of the other rate adjustments that have come forward via bylaw allow for just more of a direct comparison, and it's a lot simpler. When we've looked at, for example, some of our development fees or inspection fees, it's a simpler process and it's easier to canvass and to get some input on that from what other communities are doing. When it comes to the water and sewer rates, it really needs to be specifically catered towards the community's needs and the community's water system, and then the community's future planned investments in water and sewer. And I know we discussed this a little bit when we asked for funding to do the implementation plan and study itself, which the draft report is coming on the next agenda item is we need to input, our 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 years of water long-term investment to the community into this rate study and make sure that it makes sense. We have to be very clear that we're not overcharging from a financial perspective, but we need to make sure that we're not undercharging. We need to be able to phase things in properly. So it really needs to be catered to our community and our community's needs. And this rate setting is going to inform tens of millions of dollars in capital investments, plus millions of dollars a year in operational investments that are really critical. And that's something that needs to be done to that level of detail. So we're doing a really, really good job, and we're setting ourselves up in the short term and long term.
Okay, so if I understand that correctly, it sort of incorporates our asset management plan into, what we need to be charging to make sure that, no, it's not just updating the rates for this year, but what we're looking at for the future.
Yes, so it would be a hybrid of the operational needs that we have, and that's going to incorporate the new UV. It's going to incorporate the new dam that we're looking at building at Gold Creek, and making sure that we have the right investments to operate and maintain those assets. So not just the capital and the capital upgrades and renewals, but also the operational items that are happening on an annual basis.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mike. Certainly, when you look at that, it really isn't an apples to apples where you can go to the guy next door, the guy up the road. If you look at a water system, certainly there's a number of comprehensive factors, involved that are unique to that individual water supply to that community. I mean, I don't know how you compare it to other communities, so I do understand that part of it. Charlotte, you got a comment? Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Price. Just to add a little bit to what Mike was saying in response to Councillor Peabody's question, the other aspect of this is the frontage taxes. So it's not just the user rates. Frontage taxes are as old as what Curtis was describing, and we struggle every year with administering that particular calculation, and it is based on methodology that has long since been deemed not really practical any longer. So it is, in terms of the timeliness of it and the urgency of it, I don't know if I would say it's, super urgent, but it is, I would certainly consider it very urgent to deal with these. And it's going to be whatever we end up doing with the frontage taxes, there is going to be a lot of communication required with the public. Perhaps we eliminate frontage taxes and we blend everything into user fees, in which case there's going to be a discussion around what about the folks who aren't currently on water and sewer? How do we collect from them? How is all the equity going to be determined? It's a very, very, very big project. It's not kind of like saying development fees should go up 20%. This is really, really big, and it's something we've waited a really, really long time to undertake, and it is very important from finances perspective as well.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a number of items on tonight's agenda related to water, which is essential. We talk lots in our community about potholes and various things, but water is absolutely essential every day. And I remember, it takes me back to that significant water report we received, I think, a couple of years ago, very near the beginning of this term, that really emphasized the finite and precious nature of our water resource. And I think this is another key component to being responsible stewards to that very, very limited resource that we've taken for granted probably for lots of decades, and we now know we need to treat it with great care.
Good point. Very good point. Anything further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Curtis. Next item is regarding water metering strategy and implementation plan. I'll ask staff to review this report for council as well, please.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. Kind of hinted at this in the last one, but it's really tied together in a sense. So bringing forward the draft water meter strategy and implementation plan, for information, but it's also to give council the opportunity to comment on the draft if there's something different you'd like to see or us to look at before it's finalized. So with this draft plan, we're proposing to consider implementation of universal water, either in a 5-year implementation or a second, being a 10-year implementation. It's impractical to do just with a city our size, just 1 or 2 years do it. So depending on the implementation, those would be built into the other water and sewer rates reports and options for a future meeting for council to decide actually which to go with, or if they want to go with it at all. So the net present value of the 5-year plan is about $14.5 million, and the 10-year plan is about $14.8 million. So it's very similar. It's just it's going to come down to how we fund that universal metering. We've already started implementing water meters, as council's aware, through the building, new builds, subdivisions, things like that. But this is to go the whole city in the end. Maybe if council's got any questions or concerns about the draft report.
Thanks, Curtis. Can I get a motion that council receive the report from Engineering Development Services Department titled Water Metering Strategy and Information Plan? Mover, please, Councillor Blissett. Councillor Ray. Discussion. Councillor Peabody.
Thank you. Curtis, so obviously there's a significant investment to get water meters installed in our community or implemented in our community. And these water meters in the report, it's said to save about 20% of water usage overall. With the development of the Gold Creek Dam that we're building, is it important that we reduce our water usage by 20%? And then the part 2 of that question is saving 20% or cutting our water usage by 20% going to justify spending upwards of, what is it here, $14.5 million?
Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, that's a great question. Cutting our water usage by that, maybe 20%, it could be more. It's going to help us with leak detection, sizing of other capital assets, not just the dam, UV, there's the transmission pipelines, other PRV stations, fire flow throughout the city. So there's big savings there with these implementations. However, with the Gold Creek Dam implementation, one of the things we've had to look at is our water license and actually study how much water is in the creek. Well, the dam is going to help us provide more water. If we keep on the current water usage we have, the dam, I believe it was only 20, 30 years more water before we'll have to look at another source, whether it's more wells or going to Moy Lake or something like that, because there's only so much water in Gold Creek that we can take. By cutting that by 20%, that takes us out to beyond 50 years. Mm-hmm. So there's a huge savings for $14 million in the long run.
And one more question, if I may.
Certainly.
So I was talking to one of our local developers, and he's all for water meters, but he's questioning why we're going with the sort of the in-ground pit water meter as opposed to much more cost-effective in-home water meter. His numbers, and I don't know if they're correct or not, is that to do a pit meter is about $5,000, where to put one inside the home is anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500. So I'm wondering if it's better off for the city and the taxpayers for us to more focus on the in-home water meters as opposed to the pit ones.
Councillor Peabody, through the mayor, that's a great question, and I know we did bring that consideration forward in January and February when the metering bylaws were implemented. So the intention for the meter pits is for new installations when there's already a new service or there's already an excavation taking place, and we greatly save on the costs of construction. So when we're looking at this implementation of universal metering, we wouldn't be looking at requiring pits everywhere because we know that's not cost effective. We know that that would involve, digging up, sidewalks or digging up driveways or digging up landscaped areas. So when we're looking at existing homes, the universal retrofit would be an interior specification where you'd have to have an access panel. But the reasons why we didn't look at doing that to begin with, as we've brought forward to council, is there are a lot of uncertainties and unknowns when it comes to going inside of a building and installing a water meter. Some of them are cheaper if it's easy to access. And in some buildings, you're looking at entering crawl spaces, entering confined spaces, dealing with hazardous materials. You're also needing to get permission through bylaw to enter people's properties and to do work on their homes. And then you're getting risks with, doing plumbing works within somebody's property compared to having meter pits outside. So that is a valid consideration. It is something that we did look at extensively, and for the reasons that we've brought forward, that's why a lot of other communities that are making this decision a little bit later in the game, like we are, have been going to those exterior pits for all the new builds for those reasons. It also removes chances of people bypassing meters, which is easily done if it's inside of a home. If you're not able to go in there and inspect it, people can install bypasses around it. So yes, we do appreciate and we do certainly understand and respect that there are costs to new builds. We're having to undertake those costs ourselves when we're looking at doing capital projects for some of our own city projects. So it's not perfect, but also over the lifespan and the life cycle, looking at this in the decades long rather than years long, we do believe that the external pit installations allows a lot easier for replacement or maintenance of those meters rather than having to go into properties. And the belief is that over the life cycle of the entire program for the city as a whole, it would be more cost effective to go the approach that we are doing. But we do want to work with the development community. We do listen to their feedback. We've tried to provide options and alternatives with those meter pits to make sure that we do understand their costs and the work that needs to be done. So even though we've gone that route, we do want to work with them to make sure that it's something that they can work with us on.
So just so I'm clear here. So even if the water meter is, underneath someone's driveway, it's easier to replace one of those pit water meters as opposed to.
It's easier to go if a meter fails or a meter does need to be replaced, you're opening up a cap, you're grabbing the meter, you're putting a new one in, and you're in and out of there in 10 minutes. You're not having to knock on doors or get access into people's basements or into people's properties.
You're not tearing up a driveway to make
Exactly. And that's something where the specifications that we have provided do allow it to be accessed from the outside very easily, and for that to be pulled out and put back into place pretty much instantly. And then when we put the new meter in, that new serial number would get registered to that same property, and that second we continue being able to capture those the meter usage.
Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thanks, Curtis. Mike? The final report for consideration tonight is regarding the Phillips Reservoir Bypass Pipeline and Tunnel Pipe Design Funding. Curtis, you on this one as well? Or? Oh, Curtis Mummery. Yep, floor is yours, Curtis.
Can you hear me?
Gotcha. Yep.
Awesome. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this report is being brought to you to discuss increasing some of the design funding for the Phillips Reservoir Bypass Pipeline and the tunnel project. So as Council might have remembered from their tour, seeing that black pipe in the tunnel going through the center of the Phillips Dam. So as part of the initial budget for that, we were looking at figuring out how to replace that pipeline as well as the bypass, which would be installed in order to keep our community in water while doing that critical work underneath the dam. As we kind of got through into that project, there was a lot more going on than what we could determine from the information that we have. So in part of that, in procuring the contractor for the UV disinfection facility, we included further planning and cost estimating of these two projects. So that successful contractor is Kiewit, and we've onboarded them for the last month now, and working with them and our consultants, Urban Systems. We're looking at this additional increase of $475,000 to get us to a point where we could actually construct both of these items, which includes all the detailed design, planning. There's quite a number of other things. In turn with that, there is a grant opportunity open right now through UBCM, the Strategic Priorities Fund, which is a 100% funded grant stream, eligible up to $7 million. So some of the key items in that grant is for increased capacity, redundancy, housing, all of the things that these two projects will be checking the boxes of. So by completing this work, it would put together a really, really strong grant application package. Well, grant apps are always guaranteed. We feel we do have a good shot if we were to apply for this one, and then also having these designs in place and proper plans in place will be able to bring way more accurate budgets to actually implement this in the future, and then we could decide how to fund it if we weren't successful in accessing the grant funding. So I'll leave that open to Mayor and Council's questions.
Thanks very much, Curtis. We get a motion to council to increase the design budget of IPD 0044 from $100,000 to $575,000 and fund the additional $475,000 from the capital reserve water. Mover, please. Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray. Discussion. Councillor Teske.
Is there a potential long-term use for that bypass pipeline?
Yes, so there's a lot of uses for it. One of the items is directly during springtime when we're seeing freshet or any kind of turbidity in the water. It would allow us to have additional control of the Phillips reservoir and the flow going to the community. It does allow additional flow to be going to the community when we're doing our operations and maintenance every year of cleaning the intake to the Phillips Reservoir, as that is a item that has to be done on either an annual or every second year. So that would allow us to do that uninterrupted. The way that we do it now creates a lot of impacts to the system operationally. And then also it builds in that redundancy if anything ever does happen in and around the Phillips Reservoir that contaminates our drinking water, compromises it, or we need to do any major repairs to Phillips beyond the tunnel pipe, that we have the ability to feed the community from the Gold Creek Dam. So there's lots of operational uses.
Further. Hey, a quick question, Curtis. So when would we expect or estimate that this project would be undertaken? How far out?
If we were approved this funding, with the work that is occurring, the construction of this could take place as early as March next year for both of these projects.
Wow. Okay, fantastic. Any further, council? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Wow, you guys, I can see how you guys are overloaded over there in engineering and planning. Wow. Next are administrative updates. First is from our fire department regarding the 2025 second quarter call volume and statistics. Who do we have? Scotty. Yep. Chief Driver.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, here tonight just about the second quarter of 2025, our spring quarter, consistent with the 2 quarters previous to that, which is good news for my team and for the public, obviously. In the spring, we saw 568 calls for service from the public, 163 of them, which is 30% with respect to fire and rescue, and 405 requiring pre-hospital care services. in that period, overdoses went back up to the #1 call, but it was very closely followed by breathing problems and seizures. So our good news story at the last quarter, where overdoses wasn't our most common call, is sort of back to a more normal pattern for the last couple of years. Call distribution across the region was very stable. It's still located primarily along the highway corridor and in the kind of the core downtown area. But it does move around with some of the pre-hospital care homes that are popping up around the community as well. Nothing really alarming this quarter to bring to council, and I just want to kind of remind the public that we don't want you to become one of our customers. So if you can do anything as we move into potentially the heat of the summer to practice fire safety while you're out enjoying the Rocky Mountains, and I hope I don't see anybody in a working capacity.
Thanks very much, Scott. Council, any comments, questions? No. Much appreciated, Scott. Take care.
Thank you.
Got an update from engineering regarding the capital works program. We got Curtis Mummery again. Yeah, got you, Curtis.
Hello again. So I thought this was a good time to bring a bit of an update on our capital works program. A lot of progress has been happening, and we're starting to see a lot more work happening around the community now. So I'll start off with our wastewater lagoons. So the desludging of cells 2 and 3 has been underway for the last 3.5 weeks of actually removing sludge from the lagoons. So that contract was awarded to Lambourne Environmental. So we're super happy with how that works moving forward. Cell 2 will be done in the next day or so, and the aeration will be being returned to the cells, and they'll be moving on to cell number 3. So that's super good. The McPhee Road Active Transportation Project. So that project was out for bid over the last 3 weeks. It closed, and we're just in the process of reviewing the proposal submissions, and we're hoping to have a contractor in place in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see that work happen through later August and early September. So that's super good news. Our Victoria Avenue sewer trunk. So that project has broken ground now. As anybody that's driven down Victoria, you'll see that it's been reduced to a single lane in each direction. Our contractor Copcan there has got the initial large manhole in, and they're starting to replace the sewer main up the road. That work's gonna carry on probably right until the end of October. Copcan's pricing and proposal came in really good, so we're actually able to extend the extents of that project as far as we were hoping to. So the sewer trunk main will be replaced right into the WFP parking lot, and then the full paving will be from basically the 2nd Street North intersection, just shy of the 2nd Street North intersection, all the way to the 6th Street North intersection, with intention to looking at the 2nd Street North intersection in a little bit more detail next year, how it interfaces with the traffic lights. So that's super good news that their pricing came in that way. The 6th Street South project. So all of the deep utilities have been installed, and as Mike alluded to, on that project, we did install the water meter pits and installed the meters on all the services to the houses on that street. So that was the city's first kind of kick at installing the meters and the meter pits. So that went well to date. So those are all installed. Hopefully Galley's in building the road this week. We've had to kind of take a pause due to all this rain and wreaking a little bit of havoc with our native material. So it's been drying up, although it rained this afternoon. So hopefully the road starts going in the next couple days. The 18th Street South Fire Protection, that fire hydrant is now installed, fully operational, and the site is cleaned up. So that's good news. And then one of the big news projects, so our UV disinfection facility project has officially kicked off with our contractor. And like I mentioned earlier, that contractor was Kiewit. So we had the competitive request for proposals process and received 4 good submissions. We interviewed 2 of the contractors that scored the highest, and through that entire process, Kiewit came out on top with the strongest proposal and team. So we've been working with them the last month, and that project is starting to progress at a pretty quick pace, and we're hoping that we'll have final kind of budget and plans probably by the end of this year, which would look like we could construct starting in the spring next year. So that's super good news with how that's moving forward. Construction will be probably 2 years to like full commissioning and everything operational. And then one thing that's not on the admin update that I thought would be good to bring up to Mayor and Council is the request for proposals to hire the contractor to build the Gold Creek Dam went live on BC Bid today. So we'll be seeking interested contractors for doing that work. We're trying to get a contractor on board to help us with the final kind of permitting documents that directly relate to construction sequencing, and hopefully we'll be able to start working on that in the spring next year as well.
Great news, Curtis. Councillor Stetsky.
A lot of really good news. I'm quite excited when I read this report, and I hope we're going to do a media release around it.
Yes, absolutely. There's one ready to go after the council meeting tonight. So there'll be stuff hitting the media, and then we'll start updating the media more as now there's lots more action happening.
Hey, Curtis, couple quick questions for you. I don't want to put you on the spot. If you haven't got the answers, not a big deal. Our lagoon, so we're in phase 4 of the lagoon. So obviously we got caught a couple of years ago with our maintenance schedules several years ago. So they weren't up to speed. So we've done 1, 2, and 3. There's 3 cells? 3 cells.
Yeah, there's 3 cells.
Yeah. So we're doing 2 and 3 this year. What is the plan going forward? Are we going to start next year or the year after and just keep cycling from one year to the next, or is there going to be an interruption for a year or 2 and then start on 1, 2, and 3? Have we got a plan there so that we don't get behind like happened in the past?
That's a really great question. So what we did this year as part of cell 2 and 3 is we actually did do a hydro survey of cell 1 to determine where the levels of sludge are in that cell since it was desludged. So using that information and then the information of how much we've removed from cells 2 and 3, we'll rework an operational plan of how often and when we should be desludging, and then that can feed into working with finance and Charlotte's team of how much we're putting into that desludging reserve, because there is still money going into that, if I'm correct, Charlotte. And we're going to try and fine tune that schedule to make sure that we keep on top of it. So yes, that is in the works now.
Charlotte's nodding with you there, so obviously you're right. Hey, and a quick question. You might not have the numbers. I used to know these numbers when I was with fire, but I don't remember them anymore. Capacity of the Phillips Dam at full capacity, and the capacity what the Gold Creek Dam is going to be. I
don't have the numbers on Phillips, but the new Gold Creek Dam is going to increase. I think it's 4 times the current dam's capacity. But with that, the new dam will allow us to harness our allowable water usage year round. So the current structure, we can't really utilize what we're allowed to each month, and even with the amended water license numbers. So the new dam will allow us to just more efficiently use the water we're allowed each month and store it for when we need it. So it'll make the operation way more functional.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Anything further, Council? Good work, Curtis. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Next up is from Public Works regarding the current reservoir conditions and water usage. We've got Tony.
All right. More good news on current water usage. So as of July 22nd, 2025, the Phillips Reservoir was at 216 millimeters or 8.5 inches below full pool and is being held. With recent rainfall, the reservoir level has seen an increase of approximately 50 millimeters. 2025 is showing a slight increase in water usage over 2024, but still substantially less than 2023. This is likely due to the water flushing program that took place this year and only implementing stage 1 restrictions. So our outlook with warm weather forecasting, hot temperatures will continue to promote water conservation, and restrictions will remain in stage 1, and staff will continue to monitor the reservoir as per the policy. Stage 2 would be implemented when the reservoir is at 80% capacity or -1 meter or 3 feet below full pool and is not replenished to maintain this level. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Anything further from council? I overlooked something in the previous update. We had also their mid-year development update. Mike, are you here to do that? I apologize for missing that.
Oh, no
That's a
worries.
good news story too, so yeah.
Got no shortage of work to do here, but I'll try to keep this one brief. We will be issuing a media release on this because I think this is a really positive thing for the great work that we're seeing from our development community. So this is just a mid-year development update, mostly focused on the construction values and the permitting that we're seeing. This is the culmination of a lot of the policy work that council's been doing, and we've seen a lot of the rezonings, and now we're seeing a lot of projects breaking ground and getting funding and getting to construction. So year over year compared to last year, 2025, as of the end of June, we've seen over $35 million in construction value permits with 108 permits issued. So that's compared to same time in 2024, just under 15 million. So that's about 133% increase year over year. The number of permits isn't that significant of an increase, but what we're seeing here is a diversity of investments across different sectors. So we've shown that on another table in this update, that we're seeing, increases in single family, in multifamily, in industrial and institutional, and in government. And then we're also seeing, strong values from a commercial perspective. The largest single permit comes from the West Urban Apartment development on 4th Street North. If you've been by the site there, they've done a lot of work getting some foundation work, really professional development team and construction team in there looking to get that put up together. We are also seeing a fair bit of subdivision activity with a total of 8 subdivisions approved in 2025, in addition to 6 in the later half of 2024. This includes housing units in Shadow Mountain. And then we're also seeing from a development and a subdivision perspective, a lot of activity happening on the South Hill, including the Southwood Heights development that New Dawn has been working on. So we are seeing a trend towards higher density, medium density, and even for the single family standard subdivisions towards smaller lot sizes or duplex or additional dwelling units. These smaller lot sizes are more in line with what we're going to be looking at going forward with our zoning bylaw items. So we're seeing more efficient and effective use of land and really seeing some of that intensification. A lot of this development activity, it does come on the heels of a lot of policy and bylaw work that council's been a part of. It's taken a lot of time to get a lot of those items, but really this is now bearing the fruits of a lot of that work with the OCP update, the downtown update, housing needs assessment, in addition to the more recent revitalization tax exemption bylaws for the downtown area and the Victoria Avenue corridor. We're hoping to see some big projects happen on those 2 corridors that are really going to take advantage of those revitalization tax exemption. And that's really, I think, some of the work that staff and council have been wanting to see is infill in the areas where we already have infrastructure investments. That's core to our community, and we think that 5 years from now it's gonna look a lot different and hopefully bring vibrancy and more affordable housing to the central area of Cranbrook. So while we've been seeing a lot of that work, there's also a few other major projects that are in the works, and this is information that's been available through the media. More recently, the increased cost for the FW Green Home upgrade at $232 million. There's been some announcements made for potential 3rd floor now to the hospital expansion that could be up to $89 million. And we've also been working with our friends at the school district on planning for the Amy Woodland Elementary School, whether that's a replacement, whether that's additions, whether that's extra building happening to other school sites. We've been really trying to reach out to our partners, especially in the other institutional and public sectors, because they're seeing a lot of funding coming in as well. And we really need to plan proactively because some of these projects are needing off-site upgrades. They need sprinkler systems, they need parking. A lot of these things are really, really big items that we used to only see once every 5 or 10 years, and now we're seeing multiple of them happening in the same 2 or 3 year span. So it's a lot of work on staff's shoulders, but we're happy that we're getting some of the funding, we're getting some of these tools and policies in place that help us make these decisions proactively. We are acknowledging that all this development activity is causing a little bit of extra time for some of these permit turnarounds. We've been working really closely with the development community to acknowledge this. It's still not a significant difference from where we've been in the past, but people are used to some of those expectations. So we're trying to communicate that proactively and also trying to work with the development and building community to help them bring forward good, complete applications. And that really helps us do quicker reviews, quicker turnaround times, and gets them working on their investments even quicker. Staff are going to be looking at updates to our development guides and to our development processes. So a lot of the builders in the community or from outside the community can better understand our processes, and we can really make them support them in efficient use of their time and getting those investments moving forward. So from a staff perspective, we're really proud to be partners and be proactive supporters of this development work, and it's something that we do anticipate seeing for the next several years with some known investments that we do see in the pipeline.
Thanks very much, Mike, and thanks very much to all the staff too, right across the board here. The city staff, I've never seen them busier, and certainly since I've been back since 2005. But Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you. And just quickly, Mike, when the province introduced the single-family detached lot for up to 4 units here in Cranbrook, are we seeing any interest or uptake on that here in Cranbrook?
Councillor Popoff, through the mayor, yes, we are. Not just with some existing ones that are going forward, but right now we're seeing some of those being built for infill or even for some of these planned subdivisions, and it's now just becoming part of the status quo when they're looking at their pro forma. They're looking at what type of market they're going to be going at. It's part of their assumptions, and it's helping them maybe offset some of these challenges, with inflation that's happening. So it's a way that we were going to be looking at going as a city. So it's good timing, and it is helping us keep moving housing forward at a time where it is a little bit challenging from a cost perspective.
Thanks, Mike. Great stuff. The final update tonight is from CO Virtual regarding the RDEK tipping fee amendment. Mark?
All right, thanks, Mayor Price. So last item here in the updates, a little bit of not great stuff that we've been dealing with, so not quite as bright and cheery as the rest, but there's a glimmer of good news here too. Just to recap, the Knights Hall property, everyone's familiar with the old hospital site on Briar. The council has issued a number of remediation action orders on that property over the years, one for the abandoned derelict vehicles on the site and unsightly premises. And then following the fire at the Knights Hall, we had to demolition the building so it didn't fall on the sidewalk and the road once it was destabilized due to the fire. Then that construction debris resulted in a remediation order from council to the property owner. We also had an additional order from health for the friable materials within the site, meaning air able to blow away contaminants. So we had issued an order and worked with health on a fiber lock, which is basically spray on glue to keep the contaminants from flying away from the pile. So that property then, even though council did issue the remediation action orders and put the work onto the landowner has not complied and also not paid taxes for a number of years. So the property went for tax sale. There was no bidders, so it becomes the city's property as deemed purchaser. So now it's stuck in a bit of a limbo because until the 1-year redemption period passes where someone could buy it or the property owner redeems the property by paying the taxes, if the city should go in and do any cleanup, that taxpayer money would simply disappear and become a benefit to the owner. So it is kind of stuck. Come October of this year, if the properties are not redeemed, it becomes the city's property and the city's problem. So now with the big cost of cleanup is the issue, and this is where we did write the proposal to the regional district, and thanks to Mayor Price and Councillor Bassett for bringing it forward. for a reduction in tipping fees for the cost of the cleanup for mixed construction debris for municipalities with this specific case in mind. So thanks to the board for approving that and supporting that. So that would reduce by half the cost of the tipping fees for cleanup of that property, because that is a burden on the taxpayers if we should inherit that property. So that's a piece of good news going forward, but nothing now can really take place. So the tipping fee reduction was reported in the media, so I thought I'd just touch on this and bring this forward tonight and just say that we really won't be able to do much now until the fall till we find out what's the result. So in October, we will know. And so staff will bring options forward for next steps to council in October in a public meeting of council as well. So that's where we're at, but just wanted to say, great news that even if we do get stuck with this one, the bill for cleanup will be cut by half for the construction or the mixed construction debris tipping fees. So that's good. And then of course, how we handle that cost recovery after becoming the owner of property, then we can deal with that in a future date.
Thanks very much, Mark. We have 3 pieces of correspondence tonight on the agenda. The first one is from the Rotary Club of Cranbrook regarding a senior affordable housing project. Mark, you're going to give us a bit of an update on this one?
Mayor Price, so this is just as written. The Rotary Club has been discussing options on a number of sites. So this one simply is the preferential site for the Rotary Seniors Housing parcel. So they've simply asked by way of the letter to council stating their preference, and now for council direction to staff.
Thank you. Can I get a motion that administration be authorized to work with the Rotary Club of Cranbrook on their proposal of a land donation, and that corporate officer, the chief administration officer, and the delegates be authorized to negotiate with the Rotary Club of Cranbrook for rezoning and disposition of the proposed parcel of land east of Joseph Creek, subject to future council consideration and decision at each step. Mover, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Bassett. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Good stuff. We have 2 pieces of correspondence tonight on the agenda. From the Pro Rodeo and from the Spirit of the Rockies. Any flavor from council? Spirit of the Rockies, I think we can file as correspondence. Is everybody good with that? Anybody want to deal with the annual Cranbrook Pro Rodeo? Councillor Bassett.
So what level of sponsorship, what kind of buckle did we get in previous years? I don't remember. I'm thinking it was bronze, but it might have been.
The mayor through to council said, I believe it was bronze, was it? $500?
Well, that's not $500 is just a partner. No, we're looking at a buckle. So the buckle is $1,000 to $1,499 was what the bronze is. Maybe the cost of buckles has increased over the years.
We're just looking right now.
Okay, thank you.
But they're asking for $500.
Was it? Sorry.
Their letter
Sorry.
requesting $500.
Oh, okay. Then let's go with the 500. Then let's just be a friend.
See.
Partner.
Look at the other side. Yeah, they're asking for $500.
Okay.
You want to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we provide $500 from council contingency. As I think that requires us, well, we might be a partner at that point. And for the Cranbrook Pro Rodeo this coming fall.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Papa. Discussion. Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you. I'm in favor of this with the one question. Are they also receiving sponsorship money from the regional district? Because if they're also receiving $500, $1,000, $2,000 for the regional district, keep in mind for the city of Cranbrook, that's now double dipping. We're a major contributor to the regional district, giving that sponsorship, And now the city of Cranbrook independently is also giving yet another sponsorship. So Councilor Bissett, we might be up to the silver buckle by that point. When you add
I
up,
think we'll steer a partner
you
level.
add up the two pools that we're contributing out of. But I think we need to keep in mind that certainly the regional district, on behalf of all of the citizens, should be contributing as a sponsor. And then up beyond that, what do we want to contribute? I'm in favor of it, but just for future consideration.
Thank you. Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Norma. That now brings us to mayor and council's reports and inquiries. Let's start with Councillor Stetsky tonight.
Thank you. This is for future consideration for our CAO. We have given responsibility to staff. I'm trying to remember what it was that we've added to, we've given them additional ability to make decisions. And on what would it take to give them, if the rest of council agrees, the ability to make decisions around development variance permits on?
I don't think we can.
Don't think we can?
So Councillor Stetsky through Mayor Price. So council has delegated some minor variance authority to staff.
Yep.
However, the two variances that you saw tonight exceeded staff's authority for a minor variance. And then secondly, just so you're aware, the applicant has the ability to request either Board of Variance look at it. If it's not a staff thing, either Board of Variance or council, they have that ability to ask. And it's unusual. They usually go the Board of Variance route, so you don't see a lot at this table, but these two, for some reason, wanted to go to council. So it's just a bit different tonight.
Okay, thank you. And other than that, I wish everybody a good August. Enjoy the rest of summer.
Can I, so can I just, sorry, can I just, so we did sponsor last year, council, flipped the rodeo back over to staff through economic development, and we did sponsor to the tune of 500 last year as well. So it's the same. And then we always send out a standardized letter reminding folks to apply through the grant streams rather than coming to council for these one-offs. So that's something we write in all the letters when council approves. So it's consistent with last year somewhat.
Councillor Peabody?
Mark just answered my question, because I thought last year we sent it to the economic development officer, and that anything like this as a sponsorship is their decision as opposed to council. That way it's not, I don't know if that violates our council contingency policy, but at least falls down a better channel.
So maybe Mayor Price through to Councillor Peabody. One thing I can say is maybe we should have a look at that one more time. And I'm just thinking like sponsorships may not align with grant programs. So they, you know, even though they're annual, I'm just wondering how we best handle sponsorships versus grant requests. And so it's probably something in our policy review we'll take another look at.
Councillor Bissett?
Hi, I've had a couple of inquiries regarding road work. One of them was at the intersection of 8th and 4th, where we did road work and there was a bump left, which they're actually happy with because it slows traffic down. Because one of the things that happens is when you get your road fixed, then people are able to drive faster than they have previously. And then another request was about what's happening in front of Mount Baker School on Baker Street, because that's very rough. It's very hard to ride a bicycle on that road. But the thing is, I think the bigger issue is that when we are repaving, that maybe we should be looking at traffic calming, what we can do in neighborhoods to, you know, keep drivers within, like driving at 50 kilometers or less. And that's a big issue, judging by the roaring vehicles I hear near my home. Now, my home, it's pretty rough. The road is doing its job as far as slowing traffic down, but on other streets, it's not. And I was thinking, you know, in combination with RCMP, we really should be looking at this as we go ahead, particularly with our paving program.
So Mayor Price, just on that, just, you know, traffic calming in general is a good idea and it works. Specifically to the Mount Baker High School though, that portion of road, one of the reasons for the delay is, you know, the concept around the school reconstruction, but also the design of the roadway if we just straight repaved it, it would achieve exactly what you talked about, creating a raceway in front of the school. So the new redesign is significantly different around that to create that traffic calming. So it's a bigger project than just repaving. So that is part of the thinking, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Ray?
Thank you. Very quick shout out to our city staff. I know we always have lots of priorities and needs and activities in our city, but one of the things our citizens have identified is the importance of beautifying our community. And we've had lots of rain, and so the huckleberries are really good, but also the flowers in front of City Hall are beautiful. Yeah, sometimes I think we don't appreciate the beauty in our own city, but have a look. They are beautiful, and as are the hanging baskets. So big shout out to our city staff for doing such a great job with that. And then just a couple quick events that are coming up. Wednesday, August 13th, Hometown for Hunger fundraiser at Denham Ford to support the Salvation Army local food programs. That's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then on Saturday, August 16th, we have two important community events. One is the Rolling Barrage in the late afternoon, early evening at the Legion in support of folks who are experiencing PTSD. And then also on Saturday, August 16th, BGC Cranbrook is having their open house to celebrate, I believe, 55 years providing services in Cranbrook. So mark those in your calendar.
Thank you for that. Councillor Papa.
Oh, yes, thank you. So it was a week or so ago that many of council and some senior staff met with Minister Terry Young, Minister responsible for community safety and integrated services. We sat around the table for a good hour, reminded the minister that Cranbrook is the hub of the Kootenays, where all the resources and therefore people come to our community for services, and then addressing what the community safety and integrated services we're seeing and what our needs are here in Cranbrook. So it was a very productive meeting with Minister Young, and he and his staff, I think, took away some good notes on us being the regional hub and how that might need to be more consideration for those hubs in the province for addressing some of the services and needs we have. And also, I just want to commend staff, those staff have been working with the Kin Club of Cranbrook for all the refurbishing, repurposing work they've been doing up at the Kin Spray Park up by the college, Mountview Park. It's not yet developed, but it's looking very positive, and the Kin Club is really keen to open it up again, hopefully in August. So congratulations to them.
Thank you, and I have nothing to report. And with that, I'll get a motion to adjourn. Councillor Peabody, Councillor Bissett, all in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.